Chapter 1209. You can't go back to the city. Take them to the Green Rock Stream. Su Mo ordered. At the same time, he was thinking about how to deal with these stone-armored men. Before they came to the Green Rock Stream, Su Mo and the others had already set up a trap. Since they wanted to kill these stone-armored men, they naturally had to make ample preparations. In terms of terrain, the Green Rock Stream was relatively low. The cliffs on both sides were around 300 feet high. Moreover, there was a natural fuel mineral in the Green Rock Stream. If it was ignited, it would create a monstrous fire that would be enough to bury these stone-armored men. Before this, they had already set up a trap. If they encountered an attack from these stone-armored men, they would be sent here. The 6 scarlet flame birds quickly turned around. Li Zongjio looked at Yun Fengqi, who had a strange expression on his face. He opened his mouth and said, "Old thing, these stone-armored men are here for you. Could it be that you have something on you that they are interested in?" Li Zongjio said, "Earlier, we have indeed killed several stone-armored men. However, the things we obtained were all useless antiques. To us, they are of no use at all." Yun Fengqi was still trying to play dumb. Li Zongjio jumped and landed on the back of Yun Fengqi's scarlet flame bird. The scarlet flame bird couldn't bear the weight of 2 people, but after Li Zongjio jumped on, it didn't have any reaction. Obviously, Li Zongjio's weight was very light. He didn't even land on the scarlet flame bird's back. This made the scarlet flame bird's army very surprised. "What are you trying to do?" When Li Zongjio jumped over, Yun Fengqi immediately tensed up. This guy looked like a gentleman, but he actually wanted to make a move on him. "I have 100 ways to make you speak, but today I will use this one." Li Zongjio directly grabbed Yun Fengqi and hung him in the air. "If you don't hand it over, I'll throw you down." "Don't. What are you doing? I'm the head of the Yun family. If you do this, the imperial court won't let you off." Yun Fengqi shouted as he kicked his legs. "Let go of our patriarch. Bastard, let go of my father." The elders of the Yun family, as well as his daughter, could not bear to watch any longer. This Li Zongjio had gone too far. He actually used such a despicable method to force her father to hand over the item. Wasn't this the behavior of a bandit? "I'll count to 3. 1 to 3. Li Zongjio said indifferently. However, before Yun Fengqi could react, he heard Li Zongjio count to 3. "You are too fast. Big brother, who would count like that? Can't you be a bit slower?" As soon as Li Zongjio finished speaking, he let go of Yun Fengqi's hand. Yun Fengqi's reaction was quite fast. He reached out both hands and grabbed Li Zongjio's hand as if he was grabbing onto his last life-saving straw. "Warrior, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. Pull me up." Yun Fengqi was also very fast. If he fell down now, the Vermilion Bird army would not be able to save him in time. There were already close to 20 stone-armored soldiers below. He placed Yun Fengqi back on the scarlet flame bird's back. "You are simply a bandit, a bandit." Yun Fengqi cursed. However, when Li Zongjio looked over, Yun Fengqi did not dare to continue. If this guy was unhappy and held a grudge after taking the item and threw him down again, then Yun Fengqi would have died for nothing. "The reason they chased us here should be because of this item. Although I knew that this item would not last long in my hands, I did not think that I would have to give it up so quickly." Speaking up to here, Yun Fengqi was very reluctant and sighed with emotion. "The 12 Scriptures of Supreme Mystery?" Li Zongjio took the book from Yun Fengqi's hand. It was said that this book recorded the location of the Saint Martial Emperor's secret treasure. However, he needed to collect all 12 books. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had also heard of this item. However, at that time, the stone-armored soldiers did not appear. Or it could be said that these stone-armored soldiers were originally unable to leave the underground palace. However, this time, they took the initiative to attack and even attacked the city. This made Li Zongjio feel very surprised. "You know about the 12 Scriptures of Supreme Mystery?" This time, it was Yun Fengqi's turn to look at Li Zongjio in surprise. He did not expect this uncouth-looking young man to know about the 12 Scriptures of Supreme Mystery. It seemed that he was quite knowledgeable. "I was not interested in this item before, so I did not collect it." Now, it seems that this item is quite interesting and has changed. In his previous life, Li Zongjio did not collect the 12 scriptures of supreme mystery. The main reason was that he was lazy. Another reason was that he had waited for a long time and no one had collected all of them. Originally, he was waiting for someone to collect all of them. Then he would just go and snatch them. Wouldn't that be very convenient? Therefore, Li Zongjio had been waiting for a long time. However, he did not expect that after waiting for hundreds of years, no one had collected all of them. Therefore, in the end, Li Zongjio gave up. After all, his cultivation had reached the peak. Before he reached the absolute saint realm, he did not dare to enter the underground palace of the Saint Martial Emperor. According to Li Zongjio's guess, there must be something in the underground palace of the Saint Martial Emperor that could kill absolute saints. Only absolute saints could open it. Li Zongjio believed in his talent. Even without the inheritance of the Saint Martial Emperor, Li Zongjio would still be able to break through the absolute saint realm and reach the absolute saint realm. At this moment, he was looking at the scroll in his hand. I always thought that this thing was fake. It was very normal for the 12 scriptures of supreme mystery to be a scam. Li Zongjio would not be surprised at all. This thing was indeed very difficult to identify. As long as no one succeeded, it could be fake. How can it be fake? The 12 scriptures of supreme mystery correspond to the 12 divine generals under the Saint Martial Emperor. There is a map in the tomb of each divine general. If we connect the maps, we will definitely be able to find the Saint Martial Emperor's underground palace. Yun Fengqi said this on purpose. He couldn't let this strange young man take advantage of him. Since he couldn't get it, he might as well announce it and let everyone know. Therefore, he said this on purpose for the Vermilion Bird Army to hear. However, the one controlling the Scarlet Flame Bird was Smoky Leaf. She was very grateful to Li Zongjio for saving her life, so she pretended not to hear Yun Fengqi's words. Also, the 12 scriptures of supreme mystery are attracted to each other. Since the stone soldiers are chasing after us, it means that the 12 scriptures of supreme mystery also exist among them. Yun Fengqi looked at Li Zongjio and said, "Oh." Li Zongjio glanced at Yun Fengqi. Could it be that this old thing was talking nonsense so that he would jump down and die? If I can't find the 12 scriptures of supreme mystery, just you wait. Immediately, Li Zongjio said with a smile. Then he leaped and plunged downwards. Boom! This jump also shocked the others. What is he doing? Suemo turned around and saw Li Zongjio jump down, and his beautiful black eyes widened in shock. Chapter 12:10. Yun Fengqi's eyes were filled with mockery. What a fool! With just a few words, he had convinced Li Zongjio that there was a treasure below. There was indeed a treasure below, but it was a pity that it wasn't something a fool like Li Zongjio could obtain. If Li Zongjio jumped down now, he would die. Everyone return. Suemo originally wanted to test the effect of the green stone stream he designed to see if it was useful. However, if Li Zongjio jumped down, it would definitely be useless. No need to wait, this guy is dead. Yun Fengqi sneered. What he didn't say was that if these stone-armored people gathered together, the battle formation they formed would be enough to crush any army of the empire. Li Zongjio, this hothead, did he think that he could fight against thousands of soldiers by himself? That would be looking down on these stone-armored people. Just as Yun Fengqi was feeling complacent about his plan, suddenly, in the valley below, there was an extremely terrifying trembling sound. Boom! Rumble! Yun Fengqi looked down from this angle and saw that some stone-armored people were directly blasted into pieces. Some even turned into dust in the air. Completely dissipated. There were more than 20 stone-armored people, and the tallest among them was already 80 feet tall. Even if an origin emperor came, it would be enough to deal with them. This brat could scare an old man like him, but if he were to face this stone-armored man. Yun Fengqi's eyes were wide open. Not only Yun Fengqi, but the people of the Vermilion Bird Army were also staring blankly at the battle before them. How could someone be so powerful? Under Li Zongjio's attack, the 20 stone-armored people were all annihilated in less than 20 seconds, turning into dust that fell to the ground. Li Zongjio also found the 12 mystery scriptures among the dust as expected. When Li Zongjio picked up the scripture of the 12 mysteries from the countless lime powder, he nodded with satisfaction. It seemed that the old man from the Yun family didn't lie to him. If he dared to lie to him, he would throw the old man down next time. Otherwise, he would directly bring the old man to the underground palace where the stone-armored people appeared and throw him in. In less than half a minute, Li Zongjio once again landed on the back of the scarlet flame bird. What happened just now was like going out to relieve himself. From this, one could see how terrifying Li Zongjio's strength was. When Yun Fengqi looked at Li Zongjio again, he didn't know what kind of feelings he had. He could only stare blankly at Li Zongjio. "You've done well. It seems like reading more books is useful," Li Zongjio said as he patted Yun Fengqi's shoulder. Previously, Su Mo had briefly introduced the situation of the Yun family to him. It was a scholarly family. Fortunately, the talents of the Yun family were pretty good. Even before the establishment of the Saint Flame Empire, the Yun family was also a big family in the underworld with a respectable status. However, who would have thought that the Yun family would fall to such a state now? "You're welcome," Yun Fengqi also smiled awkwardly. Before this, he didn't know that Li Zongjio was so strong. Originally, he wanted to use the stone-armored man to get rid of Li Zongjio and let this greedy brat die. "Let's return to the city." Su Mo looked helplessly at Li Zongjio. There was no other way to deal with this matter. They could only return first. However, if they could get rid of these stone-armored people, it could be considered as solving a problem. Everyone returned to Qinggo City. The 3 people from the Yun family were directly invited to the Vermilion Bird Army's camp. At the very least, they had to assist the imperial court in solving the stone-armored people's crisis. Only the people from the Yun family had this kind of knowledge. Normal people wouldn't have access to this kind of knowledge. After Li Zongjio returned to the city, he went to cultivate. He didn't have any meetings with Su Mo and the others. After all, this matter didn't have much to do with him. He only needed to act when needed. "General, may I ask who that person is?" Yun Fengqi clasped his hands and asked Su Mo. Yun Fengqi had been curious about Li Zongjio's identity for a long time. Along the way, he had been thinking about what kind of person could nurture such a terrifying young expert. "You don't know him? His surname is Li?" Su Mo looked at Yun Fengqi. Yun Fengqi searched through his mind again. Being so young, powerful, and having a good relationship with the Vermilion Bird Army and the court, it was natural for him to have such an identity. Could he be? Yun Fengqi wanted to slap himself. Why didn't he think of this person before? After all, before he acted, Li Zongjio looked very ordinary. Therefore, it was difficult for Yun Fengqi to determine Li Zongjio's identity based on his appearance. However, now he knew that the young man in front of him was the legendary Li Zongjio, the legendary Crown Prince Fu, the imperial tutor. When he guessed Li Zongjio's identity, Yun Fengqi's eyes widened. He never thought that the situation would be like this. If he knew that the legendary imperial tutor was so young and extraordinary, he would have given the 12 mystery scriptures to Li Zongjio first. "Father, who is that person?" Yun Zhongyue saw the shock on Yun Fengqi's face. It was as if he had Alzheimer's. She was very curious and immediately went up to ask. At the same time, Yun Zhongyue was also very interested in this powerful and mysterious young man. One had to know that their group had been trapped in the pool by these stone-armored people for a full day and night. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. However, these stone-armored people were like flour in front of Li Zongjio. They didn't have the strength to resist and were easily defeated. This person is the current imperial tutor, Li Zongjio. Yun Fengqi took a deep breath. Even when he thought of Li Zongjio's name, his teeth trembled. He couldn't believe that he would meet the current imperial tutor. If Li Zongjio wanted to take his life, there were thousands of ways to do so. He is the legendary Li Zongjio? Although the Yun family had been in seclusion, they could still receive such news. After all, they were not isolated from the world. After knowing Li Zongjio's identity, Yun Zhongyue's eyes shone brightly. Chapter 12:11. Su Mo led a few people from the Yun family to discuss how to deal with the stone-armored man. The governor of Chingo City had also mobilized the troops of the other cities. The huge Chingo City had gathered a total of 150,000 troops. The military strength of the Saint Flame Empire was actually very strong. If 10 cities were to join forces, they would be able to gather millions of soldiers. Putting aside their combat strength, the gathering of such a large amount of manpower was enough to prove the strength of the Saint Flame Empire. Otherwise, they would not be able to support such a large army. The population of the Xingwu continent was prosperous. Just within the territory of the Xingyan dynasty alone, there were hundreds of cities. The number of troops maintained in the Xingwu continent was also about 30 million. This was an extremely terrifying and huge number. Therefore, it would not be easy for the 14th prince to be the emperor. Every day when he woke up, there were so many people counting on him to eat. Li Zongjio was cultivating in his practice room. At the same time, he released his mental strength to search the continent again. He wanted to know where the Divine Sparrow Realm would appear. No, the power of the Xingwu continent might not be able to open the entrance to the Divine Sparrow Realm. Li Zongjio, who was in the middle of his cultivation, suddenly thought of this and immediately understood. He guessed that the Divine Sparrow Realm might not open in the Xingwu continent, but in the wilderness. Li Zongjio had never reached the legendary Sacred Martial Realm. Moreover, it was reasonable for the existence of the Divine Sparrow Realm to appear in the Untainted Land. It seems that my trip to the Untainted Land has to be brought forward. Li Zongjio thought to himself. Originally, Li Zongjio wanted to wait until his strength reached the late Supremacy Realm before going to the Untainted Land to find his limit and breakthrough. But now he had to bring forward his trip. In Chingo City, 3 figures appeared in front of the governor's mansion. Who are go? The 3 of them were exquisitely dressed women. However, the woman in the middle looked very charming and had a beautiful figure. However, her face was covered by a thin veil, and her true appearance couldn't be seen clearly. However, the aura of these 3 women already gave off a feeling of being thousands of miles away. See, Empress, with your status, they should be the ones to meet you. Who was beside her quickly said. How could she do such a thing that lowered her status? It was simply damaging the reputation of the Empress of the Sea. If this matter were to spread, how would the Sea Empress be able to control the Sea City within the 4 seas? This matter is not simple. Moreover, this is the land of the Xingyan dynasty. We need to follow their etiquette. The Sea Empress shook her head. According to the rules of the Xingyan dynasty, the Northern Ocean Island was considered the king island of the 4 seas region. Although the king of the Northern Ocean on the Northern Ocean Island was conferred by the Xingyan dynasty, in reality, the king of the Northern Ocean was not the ruler of the 4 seas region. The true controller was actually a woman, a legendary sea queen. In the 4 seas region, everyone respected the Sea Empress. She was the true ruler of the sea. Even with his revered status, he actually had to lower himself to seek an audience with the ruler of a small city. If the king of the Northern Ocean and the others had not acted impulsively and offended the people of the Xingyan dynasty, this situation would not have happened. Originally, the king of the Northern Ocean and the others were supposed to settle everything first. But now, they were directly imprisoned by the Sea Empress. They had to ask the Sea Empress to save them. This was truly a bad thing. When they returned, they would definitely punish these people. Yes, Yer said. Then she went forward and knocked on the door. The Vermilion Bird army behind the door opened the door and looked at the 3 people in front of them. My master wants to see your commander. You took out a badge. This badge was the identity badge of the Sea Empress. Many forces naturally knew the importance of this identity badge. The Vermilion Bird army had all been trained. When they took the badge, they were slightly shocked. Please wait a moment. Then, the Vermilion Bird army quickly handed the identity badge to Su Mo. When he saw the badge, Su Mo sighed in his heart. What was supposed to come still came. Originally, he still had a bit of hope in his heart. He thought that the king of the Northern Ocean and the others had come alone. He did not think that the Sea Empress of the 4 seas region would come personally. On the other side, the people he sent to the imperial court to report the situation still had not brought back any news. It would take at least 3 to 5 days for them to return. Su Mo asked people to welcome the Sea Empress and the others in. Although the identity of the Sea Empress was very high in the Four Seas region, it was not so high in the Four Seas region. At most, they would give her some face. I did not think that the Sea Empress of the Four Seas region would come personally. I wonder what brings the Sea Empress here? Sumo said. Although he was only a general of the Vermilion Bird Army, his aura was definitely not weaker than the Sea Empress. Seeing this, the Sea Empress faintly smiled. General Su, please give me some face and release the King of the Northern Ocean and the others. As for what happens next, I'll naturally communicate with the Imperial family. I won't cause any trouble for General Su. The Sea Empress immediately said. Yu Er and the other 2 maids behind her were also very shocked when they heard the Sea Empress words. At the same time, they felt very displeased. Why did she have to be so humble to these people? With the Sea Empress' noble identity, why did she have to be so nice to these people? If these people dared to torture them on the islands, they would have been pierced through with harpoons and left to dry on the deck until they were dried out. This was the rule of the Sea Country. Unfortunately, they were on land and in the hands of the Xingyan dynasty's Vermilion Bird Army. The Sea Empress originally thought that if she spoke with her face, these people would not refuse. After all, her words carried a lot of weight. Although the Sea Country was united by faith and did not establish a true national system, the Sea Country was united by faith. However, if the 3,000 islands were to gather together, their power could not be underestimated. However, Su Mo shook his head awkwardly. He cupped his hands at the Sea Empress. If it was a normal person detained by the Vermilion Bird Army, there would be no problem if the Sea Empress spoke. However, today's matter is not something we can decide. Su Mo said awkwardly. These people were detained by Li Zongjio. If they let them go without notifying Li Zongjio, it would be a slap to Li Zongjio's face. People would think that they didn't put Li Zongjio in their eyes. Moreover, this would be extremely disrespectful to Li Zongjio. Therefore, if they wanted to let them go, they had to first get Li Zongjio's approval. Even Su Mo couldn't make a decision on his own. Impudent! You dare to refuse the Sea Empress' personal request? What rank are you in the court? How dare you disrespect the Sea Empress like this? Seeing this, Yu Er also stepped forward and angrily rebuked. From her point of view, the Sea Empress had already given them enough face, but these people still didn't know how to respect her and thought too highly of themselves. They had to be taught a lesson. The Vermilion Bird Army behind Su Mo also became serious. The Vermilion Bird divine crossbows in their hands were already drawn and could be fired at any moment. Smoky Leaf was also behind Su Mo. Smoky Leaf was Su Mo's personal guard. Even when facing someone he didn't know, he still dared to draw his sword. Stand down. Chapter 12:12. Stand down. The Sea Empress sternly reprimanded. General Su, is there any inconvenience? The people of the Four Sea regions all need a reason to be locked up in this dungeon, right? Imprisoning a prince without going through the joint trial of the 3 departments, are you able to bear the consequences? The Sea Empress was a little unhappy. She had come personally and asked for his release, yet he refused to let him go. He was not giving her any face at all. Of course I can't bear the consequences. However, there is another person in the city. All decisions need to be made with the approval of this person. Su Mo also signaled the Vermilion Bird Army behind him to put down their weapons. Who is it? The Sea Empress's eyes flashed as she asked. Li Zongjio tried his best to adjust his aura. At the same time, he spread out the 212 mystery scriptures and released their aura. Through this method, he could find the location of the third 12 mystery scripture. Since the other party could use this method to find him, Li Zongjio could also use the same method to find the other party's location. There is another supreme being expert in the city? Li Zongjio searched for a while but to no avail. If he could not find the other party, he would have to destroy the underground palace the next day. Li Zongjio was not in a hurry. The main reason he came out was to find Qi Yanran, but he had not found any traces of her. Furthermore, he had already guessed that Qi Yanran had appeared in the wilderness. Li Zongjio was in a hurry to find her in the wilderness. As long as the distance between them was closer, Li Zongjio was confident that he could sense the presence of the desolate heaven essence. This way, it would not be difficult to find Qi Yanran. Furthermore, even if Qi Yanran had obtained the inheritance from the Vermilion Bird Palace, it was normal for her strength to increase when she reappeared. However, it would be very difficult for her to kill her way out of the wilderness. Her life might even be in danger. That was the most important thing. During this search, he discovered that there was another Supreme Being expert in the city. With the strength of the Vermilion Bird Army, they would not be able to deal with this Supreme Being expert. It looks a little different from the Xingwu continent. Seems like they are experts from the Four Seas. Li Zongjio immediately stopped what he was doing. With a flash, he appeared in the Castellan mansion. The sudden appearance of Li Zongjio also gave everyone a shock. Only then did Su Mo tell the Sea Empress about Li Zongjio's matter. This matter wasn't something that Su Mo could decide. Only with Li Zongjio's approval could he do it. This is our Xingyan dynasty's state protector, Li Zongjio. If the Sea Empress wants him, she will need the imperial tutor's approval. Su Mo immediately threw this problem to Li Zongjio. The Sea Empress was clearly not a good person. She was only giving face to the Xingyan dynasty. Naturally, there was no need to offend her. Let's do both. Li Zongjio naturally didn't have any scruples. First-grade sovereign? You still need to improve your strength. After Li Zongjio sat down and glanced at the sea, he directly pointed out the hidden cultivation level of the Sea Empress. At first, the Sea Empress didn't think much of Li Zongjio. She thought that the state protector was just a title. But now, with just a glance, she knew that she was hiding her strength. She was definitely not a simple person. Most importantly, the Sea Empress couldn't see through Li Zongjio's strength. This showed how powerful this young man in front of her was. Although they came to the continent this time, they wanted to keep a low profile. After all, there were many experts on the continent. Just the Supremes alone were not few. It was hard to say how many there were in the Xingyan dynasty. If they didn't count Li Zongjio, there were at least 2 of them. This didn't exclude the fact that there were some hidden experts. They hadn't revealed their strength until now, because there was no need for them to do so. Therefore, they usually hid and didn't make a move if they could. When one's cultivation reached this level, they had basically hidden their sharpness temporarily. They weren't like when they were young, where they had to make a name for themselves in the underworld. The deeper they hid, the more powerful they were. However, the Sea Empress' choice to keep a low profile was correct. Li Zongjio also liked to deal with these low-profile people. If they walked in with an arrogant face, Li Zongjio would beat them to death on the spot. Just like the people of the Northern Ocean King, they had to be arrogant in front of Li Zongjio. In the end, they didn't have a good ending. The Sea Empress greets Lord Imperial Tutor. The Sea Empress didn't panic. On the surface, she was naturally calm. She cupped her hands towards Li Zongjio. Not to mention whether or not he really had such ability, Li Zongjio was able to see through her cultivation and even gave her pointers. This made the Sea Empress uncertain. Imperial Tutor, the Sea Empress came here to take the Northern Ocean King and the others back. Su Mo explained the Sea Empress' identity to Li Zongjio. At the same time, he explained the Sea Empress' purpose for coming here. It was reasonable. Even Su Mo had the intention to let them go. Now, only Li Zongjio had nodded. Are you talking about the thugs that injured our brothers in the Vermilion Bird Army yesterday? Li Zongjio pondered for a moment and then blinked at Su Mo. Seeing Li Zongjio's expression, even Su Mo was confused. What did this mean? Although they had fought, they didn't injure them. As for the thugs, they had nothing to do with it. However, they were still troublemakers, so it was barely acceptable to call them thugs. It was just that Su Mo found it hard to understand Li Zongjio's intentions. However, Li Zongjio's temperament had always been eccentric. Whatever he said, he would do his best to comply with him. Since Li Zongjio said that he was a thug, then he would just treat him as a thug. Yes, Su Mo replied. Well, you see, madam, it's not that I don't want to let them go, but if I hand them over to you, the broken tables and chairs, the bumps on the walls, the flowers and plants on the ground, What do you think I should do with all these losses? Who do you think I should look for to settle this account? Although Li Zongjio's cultivation had mostly recovered, his temperament hadn't changed. If Kun Erasher and the others were here, they would already know what Li Zongjio wanted to do after he sat down and spoke politely. Sure enough, the words had already reached this point. Although the Sea Empress had lived on the island for a long time, she could understand the meaning of these subtexts quite clearly. As long as Imperial Tutor is willing to hand them over to us and teach them well, all the compensation will be paid by me. Well said. Sumo, how much did we calculate before? It should be 200 billion purple yuan, right? Chapter 12:13. To what? Sumo blinked her large eyes. At this moment, she even felt that she had heard wrongly. 200 billion? What kind of number was this? This kind of number had never appeared in her world before. Therefore, she didn't react for a moment. However, when she looked at Li Zongjio suspiciously, she received a nod from Li Zongjio. She also gulped. Yes, 200 billion. Even though Sumo's performance in the Vermilion Bird Army had been outstanding, she still couldn't help but feel guilty when she said such a serious lie. She quickly called for someone to bring over a cup of tea. When she looked at Li Zongjio again, she realized that Li Zongjio didn't look uncomfortable at all. Could it be that Li Zongjio often did this kind of thing? You are extorting us. Yu, who was beside the Sea Empress, couldn't stand it anymore. Li Zongjio was clearly taking advantage of the situation. 200 billion? No matter what 200 billion was, it definitely wasn't a small number. How could it cost so much just to let a few people go? Even if they were kidnapped for ransom, it was impossible for there to be so many of them. This was simply illogical. Could it be that the money in the four seas was blown by the wind? What's more, although the Ocean Empress was the protector of the four seas, she didn't care much about money. Therefore, it was impossible for her to take out so much savings. It was obvious that she didn't want to let them go and was making things difficult for them. Back down, you are being impudent, the Sea Empress berated you. The Sea Empress scolded you. Immediately, you pouted and retreated. However, she stood behind the Sea Empress and glared at Li Zongjio with a hateful gaze. This young man looked refined, but she didn't expect him to be so hateful. She really wanted to beat him up. If they were on any other island in the four seas, she, Zhang Xiaoyu, would definitely let the person before her have a taste of her fist. Although Zhang Xiaoyu and the other woman, Gu Sisi, were said to be the Sea Empress maidservants, they had actually received the Sea Empress teachings. It would not be an exaggeration to call them disciples. Moreover, their cultivation was stronger than their peers. Their talents were also excellent. Coupled with their intelligence, they were able to stay by the Sea Empress side. If they were not so excellent, it would be difficult for them to stay by the Sea Empress side. Therefore, Zhang Xiaoyu was quite unhappy in her heart. She couldn't wait to kick Li Zongjio away. However, the Sea Empress herself was very clear. With Li Zongjio's status and strength, he didn't care much about worldly possessions like money. It was only because of his habits that he asked for a ransom. This kind of compensation could be exchanged for a person's life, so it was naturally a very worthwhile thing. Therefore, the Sea Empress nodded slightly. A mere 200 billion purple yuan was a lot in the eyes of ordinary people. However, in the eyes of experts at their level, this was just a matter of snapping their fingers. Since I've said that we will compensate for all your losses, we will humbly accept it no matter how much it is. It's just that we left in a hurry and didn't bring so many purple yuan with us. I'll put these 3 deep-sea frosty night crystals here as collateral. Deep-sea cold night crystals. When Zhang Xiaoyu and Gu Sisi heard the Sea Empress decision, they wished they could tie her up and bring her back. This was too easy for that brat. The deep-sea cold night crystal was only born once every 10 million miles of the sea. It had the effect of helping people with ice attribute cultivation to become gods. It was simply a divine object that people on land yearned for even in their dreams. How could she take it out so easily and give it to a shameless person like him? Such a thing was absolutely unacceptable. Zhang Xiaoyu and Gu Sisi were so anxious that they clenched their fists in anger. They naturally did not dare to refute the Sea Empress' words. After all, they had been reprimanded many times. However, Zhang Xiaoyu was thinking that if Li Zongjio dared to take these things away, she would definitely use her fists to make Li Zongjio obediently hand them over. The 3 transparent stones that looked like ice crystals lay in the Sea Empress' palm. Moreover, the Sea Empress had also used her own yuan qi to restrict the power emitted from the stone. If she did not control it, the aura emitted from the deep-sea cold night crystal alone would be enough to freeze the entire Qinggo city. This crystal was taken from the cold air of the bottom of the sea 30,000 meters below the sea. The terrifying power it contained was not something that ordinary people could withstand. Although Su Mo did not know what this thing was and had never even heard of it, he had already felt a deep threat when he first saw it. If the other party released this power, it would directly cause extremely terrifying consequences. At the same time, Su Mo could also see that the other party was testing him. She was testing whether Li Zongjio had the strength to take this thing away. Li Zongjio stretched out his hand and the deep-sea cold night crystals in the Sea Empress' palm floated into the air and fell into Li Zongjio's hand like 3 luminous pearls. The Sea Empress saw this and immediately withdrew her yuan qi. Suddenly, a terrifying power erupted from the 3 deep-sea cold night crystals. Boom! However, this power appeared in less than 100,000th of a second before it was easily suppressed by Li Zongjio. This is good stuff from the deep sea. I didn't expect the Sea Empress to be so generous. All right, General Su, let them go. Li Zongjio greeted her and then kept the thing with a smile. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had naturally dealt with people from the 4 seas. At that time, she was not the Sea Empress in front of him. What's your name? Li Zongjio looked at Zhang Xiaoyu, who had just stood up and wanted to hit him. My name is Zhang Xiaoyu. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoyu was already gnashing her teeth at Li Zongjio. She hated him to the core, yet he still wanted to provoke her. If he had the ability, he should go out and fight her one-on-one. Oh, good luck. The next Sea Empress was Zhang Xiaoyu. In his impression, Zhang Xiaoyu seemed to be very stingy. In his previous life, Li Zongjio was too lazy to bother with Zhang Xiaoyu. He originally wanted to take the deep-sea cold night crystals from the 4 seas, but who knew that he would encounter such strong resistance from this girl? She even had a feeling that she would rather die than submit. In the end, Li Zongjio also quietly sneaked in and then stole the collection of the 4 seas over the years. This angered Zhang Xiaoyu so much that she chased Li Zongjio all over the world. Later on, Li Zongjio rarely set foot in the 4 seas, thinking that there was someone waiting to kill him. Of course, he wasn't afraid. However, there was no need for him to fight everywhere he went. Therefore, Li Zongjio avoided it as much as he could. He did not expect to encounter it in advance in this life. When the Sea Empress saw Li Zongjio grab the 3 deep-sea cold night crystals in his hand, she was already silent. You can take anything else, but with just this hand, without even activating the slightest bit of yuan qi, you can directly take the deep-sea cold night crystals. This kind of strength is naturally not to be underestimated. This is definitely not a fraud, but a person with real strength. Su Mo ordered people to capture the Northern Ocean King and the others and bring them over. When the Northern Ocean King and the others saw the Sea Empress, they immediately knelt down in front of the Sea Empress. At the same time, they wept with snot and tears. Sea Empress, you have to uphold justice for us. Chapter 12:14. Make the decision? Make the decision, my ass. Go back to the Northern Ocean Island immediately. You are not needed here. The Sea Empress said with a cold face. Her tone was extremely cold. If you were not arrogant and domineering, you would have been caught and given such a good opportunity to blackmail me. Sooner or later, I will settle this account with these people. The Northern Ocean King heard the anger in the Sea Empress' heart and did not dare to say anything more. He quickly admitted defeat and bid farewell to the Sea Empress and left Qinggo City. From this, it could be seen that the Sea Empress had a strong prestige in the 4 seas. However, in front of Li Zongjio, it naturally did not work. Since you have released the person, Your Highness, do you have other things to do? Su Mo looked at Hai Ho in front of him. For such a big shot to visit Chingo City all of a sudden, he must have something important to do. It was definitely not as simple as just asking for a person. Even if they did not want the person, they would release the person soon enough. We were guided by the sea god to come here to look for the long-lost item of the sea god palace, the sea empress said. It turned out that this trip was to look for treasures. The only place to look for treasures was the mysterious underground palace that had just appeared. Naturally, they did not know what was in the underground palace. However, these stone-armored people came out from the underground ruins. Okay, I am in a hurry. Let's go. Let's get rid of the things in the underground palace first so that we don't have to kill people again. Li Zongjio immediately stood up and said. Originally, Li Zongjio was also prepared to break into the mysterious underground palace tonight and kill all these stone-armored people to see if he could find the 12 great mystery scriptures. It did not matter if he could not find them. Anyway, he had 2 books in his hands. He would go to the untainted land and find Yen Ran. Without the 2 books in Li Zongjio's hands, the stone-armored people could not do anything. Imperial Tutor Li, do you want to break into the underground palace tonight? The Sea Empress asked. Of course. Don't worry. For the sake of these 3 books, I will not snatch your things. Whether you can find them or not depends on your own ability. Li Zongjio said. He couldn't go too far. He had just extorted a large sum of money from the other party, so how could he snatch the other party's treasure in the blink of an eye? Thus, he decided to sell the other party a name. Thank you, Imperial Tutor Li. When the Sea Empress heard this, she was relieved. However, if Li Zongjio wanted to snatch it, the Sea Empress would not take half a step back. This thing was related to the survival of the 4 seas. Otherwise, the Sea Empress would not be so cautious. It was a matter of great importance, so if some things could be solved peacefully, it would be best to solve it peacefully. When she heard that Li Zongjio was going to intervene in the underground palace, Sea Empress couldn't help but feel nervous. However, Li Zongjio's attitude changed her opinion of the young man in front of her. To be able to possess such a cultivation base, Li Zongjio's background was also worth a good guess. His background was definitely not simple. It was even very likely that he was from the sect behind the Xingyan dynasty. She couldn't afford to offend him. Then I'll immediately bring some people and go together. Sumo said. No need. Just follow that girl. If you see anything on the road, you can keep it. Li Zongjio pointed at Sun Yi behind Sumo. Sun Yi, who was named, widened her eyes. She couldn't believe that she was chosen by Li Zongjio. It seemed that she had left a deep impression in Li Zongjio's heart. This caused Sun Yi to feel extremely excited. She was secretly delighted. At the very least, she had to perform better and not let Li Zongjio down. However, Li Zongjio had absolutely no expectations for Sun Yi. After all, Li Zongjio only wanted to find someone to store things. If there were some good things, one person wouldn't be able to carry them. What's more, the other party had 3 people, so she had to prepare 3 people as well. Only then would it be fair. Li Zongjio wouldn't bully them. They Tenfei. When I'm not here, the Vermilion Bird Army will be under your command. Su Mo handed the general token sword to another Vermilion Bird Army member. Among the many subordinates, this woman was quite capable, so it was more reassuring to leave it to her. Yes, General. Tan Fei took the general token sword and nodded. Thus, the 6 of them set off. They used the Scarlet Bird as their mode of transportation. During the process, Su Mo also looked at the map in his hand and rushed into the Stone Plains forest. 20 miles ahead, there's a huge sinkhole. There's a stone door at the bottom of the sinkhole. These stone-armored people all crawled out of the sinkhole. Sumo said. Li Zongjio and the others quickly rushed into the sky above the Stone Plains forest and saw the sinkhole that Su Mo mentioned. The entrance to the underground palace isn't low-key at all. Li Zongjio couldn't help but sigh. Below them, they could see hundreds of stone-armored people squatting in the sinkhole. They seemed to be resting, but also seemed to be recovering their strength. However, they gave off a strange feeling, as if they were performing some kind of ritual. So many. There are also stone-armored people that are 10 feet tall. Su Mo and Sun Yi both widened their eyes when they saw the number of stone-armored people. They clearly felt that it was unbelievable. Just now, they looked from afar, but when they looked carefully, the number of stone-armored people seemed to exceed 200. Just the stone-armored people that were 10 feet tall numbered more than 5. If these stone-armored men attacked Chingo City at the same time, the city would be destroyed in an instant. An army of more than 100,000 would be easily trampled to death. They weren't even on the same level. To ordinary people, the strength of these stone-armored people was comparable to the strength of a demon god. Ocean Empress, let me go. Zhang Xiaoyu saw the situation below and did not hesitate to ask for a battle. At the same time, she looked at Li Zongjio with a provocative gaze. She did not believe that Li Zongjio's strength could be so terrifying. She guessed that the Ocean Empress was just giving face to Li Zongjio's master. Okay, you go and have a try. The Ocean Empress nodded. Immediately, Zhang Xiaoyu's eyes were filled with a trace of pride and provocation. Then, she jumped and landed with an ice-blue long spear in her hand. As soon as her body landed, thousands of feet of ice immediately surged up. Boom! The terrifying power of ice also broke the silence of the night. Su Mo and the others who were sitting on the scarlet flame bird opened their mouths when they saw Zhang Xiaoyu jump down. They wanted to warn her that it was dangerous down there, but after seeing Zhang Xiaoyu make a move, they gave up the idea of warning her. With such tyrannical strength, there was no need to warn her. She was simply a monster. However, they were still able to accept Zhang Xiaoyu's strength. After all, before this, they had seen an even more terrifying monster. Chapter 12:15. Zhang Xiaoyu's skills were also extremely sharp. As the ice spear in her hand continuously pierced out, she directly froze the stone-armored people in front of her into ice cubes. Then, with a gentle strike, she destroyed the frozen stone-armored people. The long spear in her hand was a good weapon. Zhang Xiaoyu probably vented all her anger on the stone-armored people in front of her. The terrifying power that kept falling down also displayed a terrifying and exciting massacre in this sinkhole. The Sea Empress took advantage of this gap to secretly observe Li Zongjio. She found that Li Zongjio seemed to be completely unconcerned. He directly sat on the back of the scarlet flame bird and seemed to not care about Zhang Xiaoyu's performance at all. Naturally, it was also because of Li Zongjio's powerful strength. This made the Sea Empress think more highly of him. Li Zongjio's strength was absolutely terrifying. She didn't know if she would be able to see Li Zongjio fight today. Suddenly, Li Zongjio opened his eyes and looked down, as if attracted by something. The Sea Empress saw Li Zongjio's strange movement and was slightly surprised. The next moment, a figure suddenly rushed out of the sinkhole. It directly rushed towards Zhang Xiaoyu. This figure seemed to be glowing with a golden light. Zhang Xiaoyu waved her hand and got rid of the stone-armored people in front of her. There were scattered stones on the ground. Suddenly, she felt a shocking aura coming towards her. Bang! Like a giant diamond beast, Zhang Xiaoyu's long spear slammed into her. In the next second, she was sent flying without any pause. Her figure instantly flew out. Bang! Zhang Xiaoyu's figure flew dozens of rounds in the air before stabilizing her body. When her feet landed on the ground, they directly pierced through the ground under her feet. 2 cracks spread out. However, just as the figure came to a stop, the figure from before leaped out of the sinkhole. The large golden saber in his hand spun in a circle and hacked down. Clang! The weapons of both sides were equally matched. However, this collision directly forced Zhang Xiaoyu out. Golden armor? When Su Mo and the others saw the golden-armored stone golem appear from the scarlet flame bird, they were shocked. Yunfengqi is right, there are still golden-armored stone golems behind this underground palace. The golden-armored golem that appeared in front of him was nearly 2 meters tall. Although it was very tall, it wasn't too exaggerated. It was closer to the base of a human. Moreover, the armor on its body wasn't the color of stone. It was a genuine golden armor. Perhaps it might not be effective in terms of defense, but it was a symbol of strength. The golden-armored stone golem was clearly more agile, and even seemed to possess spiritual intelligence. Its movements were rather nimble and smooth, and its moves were rather fierce. In comparison, Zhang Xiaoyu seemed to be unable to withstand more than a few moves. After a series of exchanges, Zhang Xiaoyu was also knocked back repeatedly. The surrounding ground had long been destroyed beyond recognition. As long as the weapon fell to the ground, a terrifying destructive force would sweep out. Another saber slashed down, and this time, the long spear in Zhang Xiaoyu's hand was knocked away. Just as the golden-armored stone golem was about to slash Zhang Xiaoyu into two halves, two strands of cold qi turned into ropes and bound the golden-armored stone golem's body. The other maid of the Sea Empress, Gu Sisi, made her move. The two girls joined forces and suppressed the golden-armored stone golem. Seeing the two girls playing with the stone golem so happily, Li Zongjio also signaled to them. Let's go in directly. It will be dawn by the time they finish fighting. Obviously, Li Zongjio wasn't interested in waiting any longer. How long would they have to wait? Li Zongjio wasn't their babysitter. If they overestimated themselves, Li Zongjio wouldn't do anything. Moreover, there was a powerful Sea Empress here, so there was even less to worry about. Are we going to be the early bird? Su Mo was stunned for a moment. In Su Mo's opinion, everyone came together, so they should help each other. Are you stupid? I brought you here to snatch the treasure. How can we waste so much time on this? Hurry up before they are free. Li Zongjio said unceremoniously. He didn't even bother to hide his shamelessness. Most of the stone golems had been dealt with by Zhang Xiaoyu. Now, the two girls had exhausted all their energy to deal with the golden-armored stone golem in front of them. Immediately, Zhang Xiaoyu and Li Zongjio saw Li Zongjio's group sneaking away and taking advantage of this gap to sneak into the underground palace. Zhang Xiaoyu was so angry that she stomped her feet. How can there be such a shameless person? Reaping the fruits of others' labor and taking advantage of the situation. Despicable, shameless. Zhang Xiaoyu's displeasure and anger towards Li Zongjio could no longer be described with words. Even Gu Sisi, who had always been very calm and indifferent to everything, had a trace of disdain flash through her eyes. She didn't expect this person called Li Zongjio to be such an unjust person, such a despicable person. After all, they had come together. Even if they weren't companions, he shouldn't have used such a method to sneak in and take advantage of them. If such a thing were to happen in the underworld, it would definitely be despised by thousands. However, although the two of them were angry, there was nothing they could do. The golden-armored stone golem in front of them didn't give them any chance. After a fierce battle, he could clearly feel a considerable amount of suffering. It would take a lot of effort to deal with the golden-armored stone golem in front of them. The Sea Empress obviously couldn't bear to watch any longer. Hundreds of meters in the air, she directly slammed her palm down. Suddenly, there was a feeling of turbulent sea water. Immediately, the golden-armored stone golem was easily crushed. Boom! The powerful force directly shattered the golden-armored stone golem into pieces. Thank you, Sea Empress. Zhang Xiaoyu and Gu Sisi were also panting, their chests heaving up and down. They had already encountered such a terrifying enemy before even entering the underground palace. If they entered the underground palace, they didn't know what kind of danger they would encounter. That shameless person, I really hope he dies in the underground palace. Although Zhang Xiaoyu was a little exhausted, she was still full of hatred towards Li Zongjio. She cursed Li Zongjio for not being able to walk out of the underground palace. Follow me into the underground palace. The most important thing now is to find the Sea God Scepter that we lost. The Sea God Scepter. In the past, the Saint Martial Great Emperor led thousands of experts to conquer the north and south. Wherever they passed, all became the territory of the Saint Martial Great Emperor. At the same time, almost all the supreme treasures were collected by the Saint Martial Great Emperor as trophies. Now that the Sea Empresses of the Four Seas had arrived, some of the other ancient forces and forces that were once conquered by the Sacred Martial Emperor would also come to search for their lost treasures. Yes, Sea Empress. Zhang Xiaoyu and Gu Sisi looked at each other. They also circulated their yuan power and calmed the turbulent yuan power in their bodies. Then, they followed the Sea Empress and walked through the stone door below. Chapter 12:16. Li Zongjio led Su Mo and Xuanye around the underground palace. The underground palace here was like a general's residence built underground. The courtyard was very unique, but because it was built underground, it gave off a gloomy feeling. It is said that this ancient underground palace was built based on the real general's mansion. The Yun family also said that there must be a guardian in every underground palace. The strength of these guardians must be extremely terrifying. Su Mo said calmly as she walked behind Li Zongjio with Xuanye. However, Li Zongjio nodded as he listened. Then he walked in and pushed open the door of the general's mansion. They saw a bronze statue in golden armor standing in the middle of the courtyard. It seemed to be overseeing everything. There must be something wrong with this statue. When they saw the statue, the three of them stopped in their tracks. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the door behind them closed. Su Mo and Sun Yi also nervously turned around to take a look. In the next moment, there was a clanging sound as the statue in the courtyard dropped the Zamedeo on the ground. At the same time, the dust on its body fell off. Back off. Li Zongjio waved his hand. Although the battle had not started, he could feel the strength of the opponent. It must be several times stronger than the golden-armored stone golem outside. Can you do it? Su Mo looked at Li Zongjio worriedly. Why don't you do it? Li Zongjio glanced at Su Mo. Su Mo waved her hand naturally. No, you should do it. Su Mo waved her hand. Su Mo waved her hands. She knew that she couldn't deal with such an opponent. Li Zongjio also moved his body slightly, then walked forward. As soon as he took a step, he saw the opponent's golden Zamedeo coming down on his head. Boom! The golden Zamedeo emitted a blinding golden light that illuminated the entire underground palace. When Li Zongjio got closer, he threw a punch at the light released by the other party. Boom! A muffled collision sound rang out. Su Mo could clearly feel the vibrating force in the air. Immediately, he pulled Sun Yi back by 2 steps to avoid being seriously injured by this aura. Li Zongjio's feet didn't move an inch, but the golden-armored bronze man was sent flying. Bang! The house behind him collapsed. Li Zongjio immediately waved his hand. And here I was thinking how powerful you were. You made me use 30% of my strength. Li Zongjio said indifferently. However, Su Mo and Sun Yi rolled their eyes at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio was clearly going all out, at least 80% of his strength, yet he was still putting on an act. However, the opponent's golden-armored bronze man quickly flipped over and stood up. It didn't suffer too many injuries. After getting up, the golden-armored bronze man seemed to consciously move its body. A trace of expression appeared on its originally stiff face as it waved at Li Zongjio. Tisk, tsk, tsk. You have some brains, but you seem even more brainless. Li Zongjio couldn't help but sigh. Obviously, the golden-armored bronze man's soul was more well-preserved. That was why it had such a posture and action. However, it was precisely because of its incomplete spiritual intelligence that it provoked Li Zongjio. Immediately, Li Zongjio rushed up and punched out again. Boom! The violent force of the punch directly shattered the barrier runes around the underground palace. At the same time, the golden-armored bronze man was directly sent flying. It directly crashed into the underground palace, creating a large hole. Soon after, that person instantly disappeared before their eyes. A hole that directly led to the ground appeared in front of them. Su Mo and Sun Yi naturally couldn't see what happened to the golden-armored bronze man. However, Li Zongjio knew that the golden-armored bronze man had been disintegrated by his power. At this moment, it had turned into a pile of nothingness. It settled. Go and search for any treasures. Li Zongjio gestured. In fact, these golden-armored stone men weren't that powerful. At most, they were equivalent to the Origin Emperor realm. Only a slightly more powerful Origin Emperor realm. Encountering a supreme like him, of course, he would kill them all. After receiving the order, Su Mo and Sun Yi quickly rushed into the surrounding rooms. After a search, they found many elixirs that were sealed in the ancient times. Most of them were weapons and the like, all of which were displayed in the warehouse. Li Zongjio walked into the main hall and came to the front of the main hall. Then, he waved his hand and kept everything that caught his eye into his interspatial ring. Looking at the wall in front of him, it was a bit of an eyesore. Then he went forward and punched a hole in the wall. From the wall, he took out the 12 great mystery scriptures. I didn't even have to work for it. In this way, Li Zhongjio obtained a total of 3 scriptures. When Li Zhongjio and the others searched around, the Sea Empress and the others also came in. When they saw the traces of battle in the courtyard, they were immediately shocked. Traces of battle at this level. This is General Fengtian's residence, Zhang Xiaoyu said when she saw the style of the residence. Apart from the sacred martial emperor's powerful strength, the 12 golden armored bronze men under him were also extremely powerful. Obviously, this was General Fengtian's residence. It was built according to the situation of General Fengtian's residence in the ancient times. Moreover, the person in charge of the residence was most likely the legendary General Fengtian, although he was refined into a golden armored bronze man. However, with General Fengtian's original strength, he would not be defeated so easily. At this moment, Li Zhongjio and the others were strolling around the mansion in boredom. This made people feel very angry. Just a moment ago, they were fighting with the golden armored golem outside, and it was as if they were going to die. Yet, they were sitting here and enjoying the fruits of others' labor. They did not care about the morals of the underworld. They were simply shameless. Therefore, Zhang Xiaoyu did not give Li Zhongjio and the others a good look. You're here. We've searched this place. There are no treasures. Li Zhongjio walked out and said, How would we know how many treasures you took for yourselves? Zhang Xiaoyu said angrily. She could not wait to challenge Li Zhongjio and then happily slap Li Zhongjio's face a few times to let him know how powerful she was. Li Zhongjio naturally did not care about Zhang Xiaoyu's words. The Sea Empress gestured with her right hand in the palm of her left hand. Suddenly, a wave of fluctuation spread out, but there was no abnormal movement. It's indeed not here. The Sea Empress sighed. What she used just now was a summoning technique. If the Sea God Scepter was nearby, it would definitely be attracted by her summoning. At least, there would be some movement, and it would not be so calm. This summoning technique could only be used within a radius of 100 meters. Within 100 meters, no matter where you hid something, even if it was hidden in a storage ring, it would be easily found. There would be no chance to hide it at all. Hey, what's this? Su Mo saw that there was a lotus at the place where the golden armored bronze man was. This lotus actually still had the breath of life on it. Immediately, Su Mo could not help but pluck the black lotus. Be careful! Li Zhongjio's figure flashed and grabbed Su Mo. The moment the lotus was plucked, the ground under their feet suddenly rumbled, as if a giant beast was about to break out of the ground. Boom! A giant rock python drilled out of the ground. It carried a monstrous devouring chi. Moreover, this giant rock python's body was extremely huge, almost like a mountain. Just its head alone was close to 300 feet long. It filled the entire courtyard. Li Zhongjio grabbed Su Mo, and at the same time, his figure flashed and landed beside Sun Yi. He led the two of them and rushed out of the hole that was created just now. The sound of the ground tearing and collapsing came from behind them. The Sea Empress also stretched out her hand, and an aura wrapped around Zhang Xiaoyu and Gu Sisi. Their figures also crashed into the soil above their heads. Boom! The vitality around them was like 2 giant blades, directly cutting the soil above their heads. Chapter 12:17. The Sea Empress landed on the ground with Zhang Xiaoyu and the others. Li Zhongjio also landed in the distance with Su Mo and Zhang Xiaoyu. The lotus in your hand is a treasure. Put it away quickly. Li Zhongjio reminded. Su Mo naturally put away the black lotus. He didn't need to be so polite in front of Li Zhongjio. Moreover, she had assisted Li Zhongjio just now, allowing Li Zhongjio to extort a huge sum of money from the Sea Empress. The value of this sum alone wasn't simple. Li Zhongjio hadn't thanked her yet. Of course, she had to keep this benefit. It's the skyscraping python. Rumor has it that it's General Fengtian's mount, Su Mo said. How do you know? Li Zhongjio looked at Su Mo in surprise. He didn't expect Su Mo to be so knowledgeable. I don't know either. The old man from the Yun family said it. He guessed that this should be General Fengtian's underground palace. However, General Fengtian's true body isn't here. It's in the Saint Martial Emperor's underground palace. Suemo said. Li Zongjio nodded. As they chatted, he noticed that there was a golden horn on the head of the skyward stone python. It looked a little out of place, as if it had been forcefully installed. It seems that the old man is still useful, Li Zongjio said. Although it was said that powerful strength could ignore everything, sometimes knowledge was also very important. If one could master knowledge, they would definitely be able to walk a different life. However, now wasn't the time to talk about it. Such a huge beast. The strength of this rock snake must be extremely terrifying. Zhang Xiaoyu opened her mouth in surprise when she saw the skyscraping rock snake. This guy's size was too terrifying. Moreover, she could feel the terrifying aura emanating from the skyscraping rock snake. Be careful. The strength of this rock snake has surpassed the primitive emperor realm. It's at least at the sovereign realm. The Sea Empress warned the two girls behind her. What? So powerful? The two women were shocked. Although they knew that the rock snake was powerful, they didn't expect it to be terrifying to this extent. Supreme Being Realm. A random rock snake had reached the Supreme Being Realm. It was impossible for anyone to continue searching for treasures. Even the Sea Empress was nervous when she faced the rock snake. This was because the Sea Empress herself did not have the confidence to defeat the rock snake in front of her. Fortunately, the worshipping giant python's gaze locked onto Suemo after glancing at Hai Ho and the others. After all, it was Suemo who had plucked the worshipping giant python's lotus and had alarmed the worshipping giant python. Of course, he was staring at Suemo's heart skipped a beat. Being stared at by the giant python, he couldn't help but feel nervous. Go to the back. Li Zongjio signaled the two of them to step back. Immediately, his figure flashed and he rushed towards the worshipping giant python. The worshipping giant python roared and rolled its body towards Li Zongjio. If it encountered Li Zongjio would definitely be smashed to pieces. At least, that was the judgment of the worshipping giant python. The Sea Empress and the others were also very nervous as they watched the battle between Li Zongjio and the worshipping giant python. Even Zhang Xiaoyu was cursing Li Zongjio in her heart. She hoped that the worshipping giant python would swallow him alive. Anyway, he wouldn't be anything good. However, the next scene completely disappointed Zhang Xiaoyu. Li Zongjio directly blasted the worshipping giant python's head with a punch. The punch seemed to have the strength of millions of caddies. There was no resistance at all. The worshipping giant python's head exploded into pieces with a bang. Li Zongjio also grabbed a crystal core from within. Naiden! The worshipping giant python's body circled half a circle in the air before it fell to the ground with a bang. Li Zongjio put the Naiden into his bag. A fatal blow. Zhang Xiaoyu even suspected that the Sea Empress had made a mistake in her judgment. In fact, the giant python's strength wasn't that great. Otherwise, the giant python's bluff would make people mistakenly think that it was very strong. In fact, it was just an illusion or an illusion. If that wasn't the case, how could Li Zongjio defeat the giant python so easily? He only used one punch. Li Zongjio patted the dust off his body, then glanced at the Sea Empress and the other two not far away. Since the underground palace has been explored, we will leave first. You can walk around by yourselves. There's no rush. Li Zongjio said with a smile. In any case, she was someone who gave him so much money. Naturally, he had to be polite. Otherwise, she wouldn't dare to come here to play next time. The Sea Empress also smiled and cupped her fists in return. Imperial Tutor, please go ahead. If you have the chance to come to the Four Seas next time, I will definitely treat you with great hospitality. The Sea Empress said. I must let this thief taste my power. Zhang Xiaoyu added in her heart. Then, Li Zongjio and Suemo sat on the scarlet flame bird and flew back in the direction of Qinggo City. In fact, when the Black Lotus was taken away, the underground palace was considered to be destroyed. All the essence was in the Black Lotus. Although it was said to be an extremely evil object, in fact, the Black Lotus was also a rare tonic in the human world. It was unknown how many years it had been sealed, but it finally grew to its current state. Since it was discovered by Su Mo, Li Zongjio wouldn't fight with her. With the Black Lotus, Su Mo's strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. Things like strength didn't distinguish between good and evil. Only the person who used it could say whether it was good or bad. Otherwise, one couldn't blame others for being too strong and say that they were bad people. Seeing Li Zongjio and the other two leave, the Sea Empress and the other two went down to investigate the situation of the rock snake. The rock snake's head was indeed smashed by a fist. The Naiden that it had painstakingly cultivated was directly taken away by Li Zongjio and destroyed. Zhang Xiaoyu didn't believe it. She used the long spear in her hand to stab it a few times, but found that she had no way to break the rock snake's body defense. It was like a diamond that was difficult to penetrate. Even after death, its defense is still so strong. Zhang Xiaoyu was shocked. This time, she guessed that she had gone astray. Now that the Naiden had been taken away, it meant that the rock snake had lost its power to protect its body. Relatively speaking, its power was weaker. Zhang Xiaoyu should be able to easily penetrate the python's body. Who knew that the rock snake's body was still indestructible? Take the rock snake's body away. It's also a good material for refining magic treasures. The Sea Empress said directly. From the contact just now, it could be seen that the strength of the rock snake was not to be underestimated. It was also a real sovereign realm expert. Li Zongjio actually had the strength to kill a sovereign realm expert. That's not right. That guy clearly didn't use Xian. He only used the strength of his body to achieve such an effect. The Sea Empress was shocked. What exactly was Li Zongjio's fist made of? It was too terrifying. Fortunately, when she had just arrived at Qinggo City, she didn't have any conflict with Li Zongjio. If she had a conflict with an expert like Li Zongjio, the consequences would be unimaginable. Since there's nothing here for us, we'll immediately go to the other underground palaces to search. We can't let others take the lead. The Sea Empress said. Zhang Xiaoyu was also surprised and shocked. Then she followed the Sea Empress and left the place. However, Zhang Xiaoyu still couldn't believe that Li Zongjio actually had such a terrifying strength. That guy only knew how to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. He was shameless. Even if he had such strength, he must have used some kind of magic treasure to achieve it. Whether he's really capable or not, we'll only know after we fight. Just you wait. I, Zhang Xiaoyu, won't take this lying down so easily. Zhang Xiaoyu thought to herself. Li Zongjio was even more unaware that he had offended Zhang Xiaoyu. He didn't do anything, so there was no need for her to do this. Chapter 12-18. Li Zongjio and the others returned to Qinggo City. Tonight's trip was quite worthwhile. I'm sure you'll be in charge of dealing with the armored stone soldiers. Today, I'll help you refine this Black Lotus. Li Zongjio said. What's this? I don't know the exact name, but you can refine it and improve your strength. As long as you absorb all the power in the Black Lotus, you won't be far from my realm. Li Zongjio said. There were countless strange things born between heaven and earth. Li Zongjio had only cultivated for 3,000 years, but in fact he only occupied a small corner of the long river of history. There were more powerful existences that Li Zongjio didn't know about. Although he didn't know what this thing was, Li Zongjio was sure that this thing must have something to do with the resurrection of the Saint Martial Great Emperor. Since it was the means of the Saint Martial Great Emperor, they couldn't be sure. As for the situation, they could only know when Li Zongjio reached the Saint Martial Great Emperor realm. Well, how do I refine it? Eat it directly? Su Mo didn't doubt him. Li Zongjio wouldn't come to harm her. There was no need for that. With Li Zongjio's cultivation, if he wanted to take her life, it would be a piece of cake. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Li Zongjio helped Su Mo many times. Obviously, he regarded Su Mo as a good friend. Hold this lotus with both hands, then summon your fiery glass flower. Immediately, the two of them sat cross-legged in the practice room. Li Zongjio sat behind Su Mo. Being in the same room as Li Zongjio inevitably made Su Mo a little nervous. After all, They were no longer the little kids in White Blaze Mountain. Now, the two of them had grown up a lot. Concentrate, Li Zongjio said. At this time, he didn't know what this girl was thinking. If this continued, it would be easy for something to happen. No matter how strong Li Zongjio was, it wouldn't help. Hearing Li Zongjio's reminder, Su Mo quickly collected her thoughts and stopped thinking about random things. At the same time, she blushed. Li Zongjio treated her as a brother, but she actually, thinking of this made Su Mo felt quite ashamed. When Su Mo focused his mind, he suddenly felt a surge of energy rapidly surging within his body. It was as if his palms were holding a surging ocean. Boundless yuan power surged within his palms. Under Li Zongjio's guidance, the energy within the Black Lotus was immediately drawn into Su Mo's body. Boom! Su's body was with the surging power. Activate your yuan formula. Li Zongjio's words were transmitted to Su Mo's mind. Immediately, Su Mo activated her yuan formula without hesitation and integrated the power into her body. The fire glass flower floating above her head was also strengthened by the power of the Black Lotus, as if it was placed in a very nutritious environment. This time, her strength was completely raised. Su Mo could even feel that her strength was increasing rapidly. Originally, she was only at the mid-stage of the Yuan Monarch realm, but her strength quickly broke through the late-stage Yuan Monarch realm and directly rushed towards the Yuan Emperor realm. Under the guidance of Li Zongjio, she didn't hesitate and directly broke through the barrier of the Yuan Emperor realm. Boom! Su Mo suddenly felt that the merit accumulated by her ancestors over the years seemed to have landed on her. She was too lucky to have broken through to the Yuan Emperor realm so easily. How could there be someone who could cheat so easily? Su Mo's Yuan force cultivation broke through to the third-grade Yuan Emperor realm. Ordinary people would need at least a few hundred years to cultivate, and even geniuses would need at least a few decades. However, with the help of Director Li, Su Mo easily achieved it in just one night. This was simply unheard of. At dawn, Li Zongjio finally stored all the power in the Black Lotus into Su Mo's Dantian Sea of Qi. Next, Su Mo could only rely on himself to slowly refine it. The reason why it was stuck at this realm was because the fire glass flower had reached its limit. Your realm can't continue to increase because your Yuan spirit has reached its limit. Next, not only do you have to cultivate your Yuan force, but you also have to refine your Yuan spirit. Only when you are one with your Yuan spirit will you be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Li Zongjio said. And where did you learn all these skills? Su Mo was extremely excited. Li Zongjio in front of him was simply a monstrous existence. From the moment he met Li Zongjio, he knew that this guy was simply not an ordinary person. I learned it myself. Li Zongjio did learn it himself. He had never been a disciple of any sect. He had always roamed the Jianghu on his own with his saber and spear. No one could have predicted that such a bizarre thing would happen to him after he was reborn. You're leaving? Su Mo seemed to feel Li Zongjio's intention to leave. Sure enough, there was nothing that could stop Li Zongjio. Yes, I'm leaving now. Li Zongjio stood up and said, if Qi Yanran was in the untainted land, it was inevitable that she would be in danger. The dangers in the untainted land were not so simple. Even if he went there, he dared not say that he could escape unscathed. But for now, he still had the ability to protect himself. By the way, if you're in charge of pacifying these underground palaces, help me keep an eye on a person. He's my friend Wang Jing. Li Zongjio said. Although Li Zongjio didn't know how Fatty Wang Jing was doing, he was sure that Fatty Wang Jing wouldn't die. Too many things had changed, and Li Zongjio wasn't sure if Wang Jing would be alright. However, Wang Jing would definitely have a hand in the things inside the underground palace. Therefore, he had to remind Su Mo that they should take care of each other when the time came. Wang Jing, right? Don't worry, I'll keep it in mind. A person who could be called a friend by Li Zongjio was certainly not an ordinary person. I'm leaving. After Li Zongjio finished speaking, his figure disappeared directly. If it was before, Su Mo would have found it difficult to notice Li Zongjio's departure. But now, at least he could feel that Li Zongjio's speed was extremely fast, and only a small wave was set off in the space. It was precisely because of his fast speed that it gave people the feeling that he had disappeared from the place. So fast. I didn't expect that I would also reach the primitive emperor realm. Suemo was also very excited. He immediately clenched his fists and rushed out. He must find someone to test his moves. Otherwise, he would not know how to control his strength. Chapter 12-19. After leaving Chingo City, Li Zongjio directly flew into the sky. It was as though he had torn the heavens apart. In just a little over 10 minutes, he had already arrived above Luoxia City. He returned to the Li family. Recently, Luoxia City had also been attacked by the stone-armored people. However, with the defensive strength of Luoxia City, it wasn't a problem for them to defend. It was also a training ground for the soldiers. "Hey, why are you here, kid?" Li Tianqing saw that Li Zongjio had actually returned. This kid was simply like a ghost that appeared and disappeared mysteriously. He was everywhere. "I came back to prepare. I'm going to go on a long trip," said Li Zongjio. Then, he looked around the meeting room and saw that all the Li family members were present. Everyone put in a lot of effort in this battle because this was a good opportunity to make a name for themselves and build up their achievements. Therefore, they had to treat this as an opportunity. Normally, there wouldn't be such a good opportunity to contribute to the family. Now, it was very easy for the Li family to do anything. As long as the Li family casually made something, someone would send money over. There was no challenge at all. It wasn't easy for such a thing to happen. Of course, they had to fight to be the first to perform. If they didn't perform well, they might be suppressed by others. Who would know how powerful they were? "Send them out to patrol," Li Tianqing said. "All right, you guys continue." Li Zongjio nodded and then left hurriedly. Although it was very convenient to use mental strength to search, Li Zongjio's cultivation level already had a feeling of returning to one's original state. He didn't need to use any unnecessary moves. Then he would try his best not to use them. In the Blackwater Forest, the Sky Blaze Lion was stepping on a stone-armored person. Moreover, there were a few Yuan beasts behind him. These meta-beasts were all rank 6 meta-beasts. They were equivalent to the Origin Emperor realm. Any one of them was no weaker than the Sky Blaze Python. There were a total of 3 meta-beasts following behind the Sky Blaze Lion. These meta-beasts were all subdued by the Sky Blaze Royal Lion. Of course, they had to take a good look around the huge Blackwater Forest. Sometimes they were simply too bored. Hence, they would capture some meta-beasts to give them a good beating to exercise their muscles. Over time, most of these meta-beasts were the overlords of the surrounding area. But now, they were scared and were ordered around by the Sky Blaze Lion all day. Suddenly, a figure landed behind the Sky Blaze Lion. The 3 rank 6 meta-beasts immediately discovered the unfamiliar aura that had suddenly intruded. Who dared to barge into the territory of the Beast Emperor? Was simply seeking death. Immediately, a huge black bear stood up. With a roar, it swung its heavy bear paw at Li Zongjio's head. However, before the bear paw could land on Li Zongjio's head, it was kicked away by the Sky Blaze Lion. The pitiful black bear rolled a few times on the ground. In the end, it could only pat the dust off its butt and stand up slowly. It felt extremely wronged. It was clearly protecting its boss, but it was still kicked away by him. In any case, it was once an Emperor Realm expert. Why was it not given any face at all? The black bear naturally felt wronged. However, the Sky Blaze Lion did not care about this. It immediately crawled towards Li Zongjio and laid on the ground. It used its head to nudge Li Zongjio to show its submission. The 3 meta-beasts at the side more or less had some spiritual intelligence. They could also tell that this weak person in front of them seemed to be their boss's boss. "Follow me." Li Zongjio brought the Sky Blaze Lion to a large open space. The 3 meta-beasts behind him also followed him eagerly. Li Zongjio glanced at them and ignored them. These meta-beasts were strong, but their talents were ordinary. They could not enter Li Zongjio's eyes. Hence, Li Zongjio also ignored them. He did not have much interest in it. Anyway, the Sky Blaze Lion Emperor was just for fun. This is the inner core of a sovereign meta beast. It is extremely powerful. Consume it and I will help you refine it. After refining it, you should be able to speak human language. Li Zongjio took out the inner core of the sky-soaring giant python. When the Niden was taken out, it immediately released an extremely alluring aura. The meta beasts stared at it with their eyes wide open. It seemed like their boss's boss was really an incredible person. The Sky Blaze lion was naturally wild with joy. It sat on the ground obediently and waited for Li Zongjio's next move. Li Zongjio directly threw the inner core to the Sky Blaze lion. The Sky Blaze lion could not wait to open its mouth and swallow the inner core in one gulp. Immediately, there was a surge of turbulent energy in the Sky Blaze lion's body. Li Zongjio was already familiar with helping people refine things that could increase their cultivation. Hence, this time, it was very easy and smooth for him to refine the inner core of the sovereign meta beast. With the Sky Blaze lion's strength, it would not be a problem for it to refine it alone. However, it would take too much time. Li Zongjio could not wait until then. Hence, he helped the Sky Blaze lion to refine the inner core. The three meta beasts nearby had envy in their eyes and saliva in their mouths. They sat on the ground blankly and looked at their boss's increasing aura with envy. Was it so blissful to be a boss? After 2 full days, the energy of the inner core was finally completely integrated into the Sky Blaze lion's body. When the last bit of energy was completely integrated into the Sky Blaze lion's body, the Sky Blaze lion stood up angrily and roared. Roar! Along with the roar, a strong wave of energy burst out from its body. Li Zongjio immediately retracted his yuan power and flew into the distance. Only the Sky Blaze lion was left standing on the ground. If you don't want to be struck by lightning, hide further away, Li Zongjio said indifferently. At this moment, the three meta beasts came to their senses. No wonder they felt uneasy. They quickly ran into the distance and disappeared in a flash. They hid even further away than Li Zongjio. Their beastly nature was displayed without any concealment. Thunderclouds rolled in the sky. Terrifying thunder rumbled in the dark clouds. The clouds had already descended to a very low altitude. At this moment, one could clearly feel that all the living things in the Blackwater forest were trembling. In front of the might of the heavens, they had no choice but to bow their heads and submit. A world shaking will burst out from the Sky Blaze royal lion's body and was released into the sky. It was like a terrifying aura had turned into a sharp sword and pierced the sky. Chapter 12:20. The Sky Blaze lion roared towards the sky, and all the other primordial beasts knelt down. The Sky Blaze lion was fearless in the face of the raging lightning that fell from the sky. It rushed towards the lightning. Boom! In an instant, the entire Blackwater forest was filled with lightning. The lightning and fire that fell in all directions were rolling. Within 100 meters of the Sky Blaze lion, everything had turned into a pile of ashes. The 3 rank 6 primordial beasts were dumbfounded by the terrifying power. It was too terrifying. If it was them, they wouldn't even be able to withstand one strike of such divine lightning. If they were struck, they would probably be roasted. The Sky Blaze lion had already withstood 9 consecutive strikes of lightning. At the last moment, a horn grew out from between its eyebrows. The horn pointed towards the sky. When the 10th strike of lightning fell, it was absorbed by the horn that had just grown out. The primordial beast's aura filled the entire area. The primordial beasts that were released knelt down in the direction of the Sky Blaze lion. The 3 primordial beasts also knelt down to show their submission. After the Sky Blaze lion released its majestic aura, it came back to Li Zongjio. Greetings, master. The Sky Blaze lion spoke in human language with a deep voice. Although its words weren't very clear, it could at least express its meaning clearly. Your royal bloodline has also awakened, right? Li Zongjio asked. Speaking of the bloodline awakening, the Sky Blaze lion was a little excited. At least the state of awakening was real. Instantly, it felt that its strength had increased by a lot. This was a great feeling for the Sky Blaze lion. At the same time, it had also obtained many ancient inheritances. It was no longer the Sky Blaze Lion. It was a true primordial beast. His nickname was the Sky Blaze Beast. This was also the name that had been passed down from generation to generation in the Sky Blaze Lions clan. The Sky Blaze Lion naturally loved this nickname. Moreover, the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign's strength had also broken through the Supremacy realm and stepped into another level. It even had hopes of breaking away from the fate of the Origin Beast clan in the future and becoming an existence of a higher level. And all of this was because of the care of his master, Li Zongjio. If it wasn't for Li Zongjio, he wouldn't have the fortune he had today. I have to leave for a period of time. Help me look after Luoxia City. If there's even the slightest bit of damage, I'll come back and hold you accountable. If you perform well, I'll refine a form transformation pill for you and help you get rid of this Origin Beast body. Li Zongjio said. The refinement of the form transformation pill was also where Li Zongjio's pride lay in his previous life. God knows how many supreme primal beasts had begged for a form transformation pill from Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio didn't care about these people at all. He didn't give them any chance at all. If they wanted Li Zongjio to help them, they would usually have to pay a huge price. After all, the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign was nurtured by Luoxia, so it was only right for him to take care of it a little more. When he heard that there was still a chance for the form transformation pill, the inherited memories in his mind also told the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign that the form transformation pill was a wonderful thing. Countless prime beasts wanted to get their hands on one, but those who knew how to refine this pill were basically all dead. There was simply no way to get their hands on it. However, its master actually knew how to refine the form transformation pill. This was simply too great for the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign. Master, don't worry. With me around, Luoxia City will definitely not be harmed in the slightest. Although the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign was a beast, it also understood how much blood Li Zongjio had poured into Luoxia City. Therefore, it naturally knew how important Luoxia City was to Li Zongjio. Very good. Keep a close eye on these little brothers of yours. If anything happens, they won't be able to bear the consequences even if they die. Li Zongjio said faintly as he glanced at those meta-beasts. Clearly, these meta-beasts hadn't been subjected to mind control, so their bestial instincts were still preserved. However, they had chosen to submit to the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign. Who knew when they would go crazy and sneak into Luoxia City to eat, kill, or cause harm? This was all very likely to happen. Naturally, Li Zongjio had his reasons for reminding the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign. Master, don't worry. The Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign said as it lowered its head. Li Zongjio nodded. All right, I'll leave this place to you. I'm leaving. Li Zongjio didn't waste any more words. No matter how strong the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign was, as long as it was under his mind control, it would have to obey Li Zongjio forever. Li Zongjio could help it become a beast sovereign, but he could also turn it into a corpse. Boss, who is this? Black Bear, who had been about to attack Li Zongjio, couldn't help but ask after Li Zongjio left. The other two meta-beasts also looked at the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign curiously. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. The few of you, go and keep a lookout. If any person or beast dares to approach Luoxia City, capture them and bring them to me. The Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign spoke directly. However, the meta-beasts only roared. Clearly, they hadn't developed such high spiritual intelligence. A restriction was a restriction. They couldn't break free at all. Li Zongjio also headed straight for the elemental wilderness. To reach the elemental wilderness, one had to pass through the east of the Xingyan dynasty. They had to pass through countless meta-beast forests and traverse countless mountains and rivers. Li Zongjio's speed wasn't simple. He was so fast that he disappeared into the sky in the blink of an eye. Boom! About 3 days later, a desert city appeared in front of him. Standing in the boundless wilderness of the desert, Li Zongjio felt a sense of melancholy when he saw the city. He had never felt this kind of melancholy before. To Li Zongjio, returning to this place was also a place full of memories. I'm finally back. Li Zongjio walked into the desert city. There was a violent sandstorm everywhere. This was a city formed by the experts of the desert. Many people who wanted to go to the elemental wilderness had to replenish their supplies here. Many things from the elemental wilderness were also sold here. As long as one left the desert city, it would be another world. The desert city would also become a front line. In the past, Li Zongjio had offended many people and made many enemies in the desert city. However, that was the cause and effect of his previous life. In this life, as long as they didn't hurt Li Zongjio's family, he could pretend that nothing had happened. The desert city was controlled by the 4 big families. Chapter 12:21. There was a special phenomenon in Desert City, which was that no one knew if someone had a treasure on them. It was possible to obtain an extremely precious item from an inconspicuous person. Therefore, no one in the city could be underestimated. At the same time, one had to keep an eye on the people coming and going on the road. Killing and robbing were extremely common in this kind of place. As long as the other party suspected that you had a treasure on you, they would not hesitate to take you somewhere and kill you. They would rather kill the wrong person than let you go. One should not show off one's wealth. One had to deeply understand this principle here. If one was not confident in one's own strength, then one should not show off one's wealth carelessly. Other places might have the protection of the imperial court, but here, even if one died in a corner, one would not be discovered until many years later. Moreover, no one would know who one was. Li Zongjio stepped into Desert City, and a group of people came up to him. They were all wearing silk cloaks that dissipated heat and resisted heat waves. This kind of cloak was a good thing for passers-by. If one's cultivation was not enough, it would not take long for one to be directly dried out in the desert. Little brother, this must be your first time here. Bring a special sunscreen cloak with you. I guarantee that you'll feel as cool as taking a stroll by the lake. The surrounding heat won't be able to invade you at all. The people who came up to Li Zongjio actually started to promote their cloaks. However, he had seen this kind of thing many times before. They were not sincere in selling things. A sunscreen cloak like this could not be worth much. What they really cared about was the strength that one displayed when making a move. If one was not careful and exposed their wealth, or if one's own whereabouts were discovered, then one would be a big fat sheep for them. The Mo family, one of the 4 major families in Desert City, was the best at doing this kind of shady business. They controlled all the lifelines in Desert City. The 4 major families were more like 4 tyrants, firmly entrenched in Desert City. If you don't have enough ability, your fate is basically sealed after you enter the city. However, those who came to Desert City were basically prepared. At the very least, they had done their homework and knew where this place was. That was why they came. Just like how the retired soldiers of the Xingyan dynasty would come here in groups, they naturally didn't dare to provoke such people. When the time came, it was hard to say who would be at a disadvantage. No need, Li Zongjio gently waved his hand and pushed the person in front of him dozens of meters away. He couldn't be too low-key either. If he was targeted, it would be troublesome. Therefore, Li Zongjio used a few tricks to force these people back. Immediately, the few of them understood that the strength of the young man in front of them was not simple. Moreover, he was deeply aware of the tricks in the city. Naturally, they did not dare to provoke such a person. Young hero, please go ahead. After Li Zongjio left, they reported this person's situation to their superiors. Boss, this kid is a little arrogant, isn't he? A few people who had just joined couldn't help but say. In the past 2 days, they had dealt with a lot of people and gained a lot of benefits. Therefore, when they saw a new face, they inevitably felt a little excited and wanted to imitate him. However, just now, their boss directly asked Li Zongjio to leave, which made them a little puzzled. What do you know? How many times have I told you that you can't judge a person by his appearance? This is Desert City. Even a 3-year-old child has the strength to kill a Yuan monarch. It's absolutely not surprising. Didn't you see that guy's expression and attitude just now? He wasn't curious about Zhou Wei's things at all. His gaze was firm. Obviously, it's not his first time in Desert City. The aura on his body is so calm. The temperature around our Desert City is much higher than ordinary places. However, there isn't the slightest fluctuation of Yuan Qi on his body, nor is there the slightest trace of sweat. How can such a person be simple? While he was analyzing, the burly man's heart was also nervous. In fact, he had not thought of so many details just now. Only when he really recalled it did he understand that Li Zongjio, who he had just met, seemed to be really terrifying. The people below felt their scalps tingle when they heard their boss's explanation. However, there were still some people who did not take it seriously. They thought that Li Zongjio was just a child and could not be very powerful. Don't act recklessly. Report this person to the family head. The burly man had a very keen insight into such a person. When he saw Li Zongjio, he knew that this guy was definitely not simple and had to pay attention to him. The reason Li Zongjio came to Desert City was because of this. It was also to search for information. In Desert City, the Gu family was in charge of the information business. Even the Rain Tower had no way of doing business in Desert City. They relied on the wilderness and who knew how many experts there were. If they rashly angered an unknown expert, there might be irreversible consequences. When that happened, it would be too late for regrets. The Gu family had set up an information exchange hall in Desert City called the Desert Eagle. Here, information could be disseminated at will and precious information could be exchanged between each other. Within the range of the Desert Eagle, it was guaranteed that one's information could be exchanged safely. However, after leaving, there was no guarantee. Of course, there was also a very expensive transaction fee. Almost every transaction was at a sky-high price. Of course, there would also be various kinds of information that would be publicized. If one wanted to buy specific information, they would also have to pay a fee. It was the same as the Rain Tower's business, but the range of the Desert Eagle was the entire wilderness. Of course, the Desert Eagle, which had been painstakingly developed, was not that simple. Li Zongjio directly walked into the Desert Eagle. In the huge hall, there were all kinds of people sitting in a disorderly manner. There were even many people waiting at the entrance. A day trip to the outer ring of the wilderness only costs 3,000 purple yuan. A group of 10 people. Now, we are short of 3 people. Little brother, do you want to get in the car? We can set off immediately. We have absolute armed forces to protect you. A short, thin man came in front of Li Zongjio. Without waiting for Li Zongjio to refuse, he had already started to introduce his business in detail. However, Li Zongjio did not say anything. He directly swept past the thin man and walked towards a service window. The skinny man wanted to chase after Li Zongjio and question him. There was a price to pay for being rude in Desert City. However, when he saw the direction Li Zongjio was heading, he stopped in his tracks and did not continue forward. This is the kid's first time here. He actually has the guts to go to that window. Thinking of the services provided by the window, of course, the price included, the thin man's heart trembled slightly. He did not dare to continue to disturb him. It would not be long before he was thrown out. I want to collect information. Li Zongjio walked in front of the window and said indifferently. Behind the window of the counter, a pair of slender legs wearing leather boots casually rested on the table. She was flipping through the Desert City's Desert Daily. This thing was also published by the Desert Eagle. Its purpose was to collect a day's worth of fresh information and then distribute it free of charge. Sometimes, there would be some information left on it. Naturally, people would come looking for it. Such an idea was simply brilliant. For example, there was a piece of information recorded in the Desert Daily. Yesterday, a turquoise water spiritual snake appeared in the outer ring of the wilderness. This turquoise water spiritual snake was a growth type rank 7 spiritual beast. Supreme level. Of course, they did not dare to have such thoughts about the turquoise water spiritual snake. However, after the news of the turquoise water spiritual snake, there would be the appearance of grade 8 spiritual herbs. The existence of this grade 8 spiritual herb was enough to attract many people to come to the Desert Eagle in search of information about the jade water spiritual snake. In this way, wouldn't there be enough customers to come to the Desert Eagle? Most of the people who were present today were here for specific information about the turquoise water spiritual snake. If you want to buy information, go to the hall. This is not a place for you to come. The owner of the pair of slender legs did not even put down the newspaper in her hands. She spoke so arrogantly that she did not even intend to look at the person in front of her. I want to find everything, including information about the Peacock Deity Palace. Li Zongjio ignored the other party's drive and continued speaking. Whoever can provide useful information will be rewarded with elixirs. Li Zongjio directly placed a bottle of elixirs on the window. You only have 3 days. If you have any information, come and inform me directly. After Li Zongjio placed the bottle of elixirs on the table, he turned and left. This arrogance made Gu Wei frown. She immediately put down the newspaper in her hands. When she looked over, she found that Li Zongjio had already disappeared. On the table, there was a porcelain bottle. Just from the looks of it, the cost of this porcelain bottle was not cheap. The patterns on the surface were not easy to buy. This was a special elixir bottle. Gu Wei immediately opened the elixir bottle. She was immediately shocked by the contents of the bottle. Chapter 12:22. There were indeed elixirs in the bottle, but they were all high-grade elixirs. There were at least a dozen 6th-grade elixirs in it. Gu Wei immediately put the bottle away. Level 6 pills were hard currency no matter where they were placed. If this thing were to be distributed, it would definitely be something that would stun everyone present. It was actually very simple for the Desert Eagle to handle this matter. All he had to do was to pay the money. However, this was the first time Gu Wei had seen such an arrogant person after working at the counter for so long. Was he not afraid that she would go back on her words? If the Gu family behind them were to really take action, they might not be afraid of anyone in this desert city. What can you do if I really take your share? What can you do? Gu Wei just thought about it, but she did not really think about taking the elixirs for herself. Since the other party dared to do so, it meant that he was not afraid of her taking his elixirs. What's more, those who went out to do business would be too short-sighted if they only focused on this little bit. The reason why the Gu family could have today's status in Desert City was because they were far-sighted and would not only care about the gains and losses in front of them. Jia-san, have you written down what that guy said just now? Yes, young Mississippi, go and distribute it quickly. Gu Wei did not delay at all. It had always been their principle to do things with money. Therefore, after receiving benefits from Li Zongjio, this matter naturally had to be done properly. Otherwise, who knew what Li Zongjio's background was? If they could not complete the task, they might ask for the elixirs back. Wouldn't that be a great loss? Let me see. After Jia-san finished listing out all the information, Gu Wei took it over and took a look. Sparrow Divine Palace? Gu Wei suddenly frowned. She grew up in the border of the Untainted Land, so she was basically familiar with the things in the Untainted Land. However, the name Sparrow Divine Palace was still very unfamiliar to her. However, the style of the name sounded like it belonged to a mysterious sect in the Untainted Land. No one would believe that there were still various sects in the Untainted Land. The existence of these sects was extremely mysterious. It was even hard to believe that these people could survive in the Untainted Land. However, if one were to talk about the sects that existed in the Untainted Land, they seemed to be completely uninterested in the disputes of the secular world. In terms of realm and level, they were much higher than ordinary people. In their eyes, there was only the world in front of them. He was good at fighting with heaven and earth. Even the terrifying meta-beasts that existed in the Untainted Land were nothing in their eyes when they were faced with such mysterious existences. The people in the desert city were also very tactful. They did not deliberately offend these legendary existences. After all, they were all focused on their cultivation and did not wish to be disturbed by the secular world. These mysterious existences often appeared and were not illusory. There was once a person who encountered danger in the Untainted Land. When his life was in danger, he saw a white-robed immortal descending from the sky and killing a giant beast that was comparable to a fiend god with a single slash of his sword. Similar things happened frequently. Therefore, it was more certain that there were more mysterious existences in the Untainted Land. Spread the news. Try your best to find the news of the Sparrow Divine Palace. The reward will be calculated in terms of elixirs. The highest reward will be a 7th grade elixir. What Li Zongjio gave just now was only a part of the reward. The other part belonged to them. In the end, they would need Li Zongjio to pay a fee before they could give the specific information to him. As for where to find Li Zongjio, it was not difficult for the Gu family to do something in the desert city. As long as Li Zongjio was in the desert city, they would definitely be able to find him. If they did not have this ability, they would not have opened this information trading center. However, when they were in the Desert Eagle Center, some people had their eyes on Li Zongjio. Those who could walk to the window dedicated to releasing information were not simple people. The price inside was not simple. A little bit of information was enough to make you bankrupt. In the end, if you could not take out something of equivalent value, you would have to wait for your limbs to be chopped off. For Li Zongjio to have the courage to walk to this window, it already showed that his strength was not bad, and he had a little courage. Moreover, after seeing the actions of Gu Wei and the others, it seemed that the things that Li Zongjio gave were also quite valuable, otherwise, they would not have directly started working so quickly. After the matter was settled, a few people immediately followed Li Zongjio. They followed behind him. After they found the place where Li Zongjio stayed, they would kill Li Zongjio at night and directly take his head. Li Zongjio, on the other hand, walked into a restaurant in the desert city. This restaurant was called the Elemental Restaurant. It was said that most of the ingredients used were transported from the untainted land. Only this restaurant could process the skin and meat of the elemental beasts and make delicious dishes. Li Zongjio also stayed here for a period of time in his previous life. At that time, he did not have the money to pay the bill. After a few days of eating and drinking, he actually spent an astronomical amount of money. Later, he caused a scene. The experience of his previous life was not mentioned for the time being. After all, the situation now was different, and the same result would not happen again. But sometimes, history was surprisingly similar. Get out of the way. My young master has booked the whole place. When Li Zongjio was about to walk in, suddenly 2 guards in black clothes appeared. The material of this black clothes was quite precious. At least in this desert city, it was a symbol of status. One of them stopped Li Zongjio. Not only did he stop him, but he also put the scabbard in his hand on Li Zongjio's shoulder. It seemed that if Li Zongjio made the slightest move, he would immediately regret coming here. On the other hand, the other person held a saber in one hand and crossed it in front of his body. He looked at Li Zongjio with a cold smile. Obviously, this person was more powerful than the other person. Therefore, the first threshold was given to the other person. If Li Zongjio did not listen, there was a possibility that he would die today. When the surrounding people saw that the elemental wine was blocked by the 2 fierce-looking people, they pointed and talked non-stop. In fact, the elemental restaurant did not have a reservation system. But if you have the ability to stop other guests at the door, you are amazing. Aren't these 2 people the Feng family's cold saber demon? Bring these 2 people here. It should be the young master of the Feng family who is holding a banquet in this restaurant. I don't know where they come from. Who knows? Anyway, their background is definitely not small. Originally, some people wanted to go forward, but after seeing this scene, they chose to retreat and did not dare to come closer. They thought that it would be better to eat somewhere else. Who is the young master of the Feng family? Is he awesome? Shu, brother, you should speak softly. If someone hears you, they will come and chop you up in minutes. I won't be able to live either. The young master of the Feng family is one of the 4 big families in the desert city. Don't you think he is awesome? And I also heard that the young master of the Feng family seems to have a relationship with a sect in the elemental wilderness recently. Maybe if it goes well, he will directly enter the sect in the elemental wilderness. So powerful. Li Zongjio glanced at the person in front of him and understood the rules of the elemental wilderness restaurant. If the restaurant was really booked in advance, then it would be better to come back tomorrow. After all, it would not be good if you directly went forward and broke the rules set by the restaurant. However, the elemental wilderness restaurant did not have the rule of booking the entire restaurant, so Li Zongjio did not show any mercy. He raised his hand, put his fingers together, and pointed directly at the strong man in black in front of him. The strong man in black did not expect that Li Zongjio would dare to make a move. However, when he wanted to dodge, he felt that it was too late. Although he could see with his eyes, his body could not move at all. Chi! Li Zongjio's finger poked a big hole between the man's eyebrows. You are courting death. Seeing this, the other swordsman behind him directly pulled out the long saber in his hand. However, before the saber was completely out of the scabbard, his movements had already stopped. Plop! His body fell directly to the ground, and there was also a bloody hole between his eyebrows. Just like that, his life disappeared. On the other hand, Li Zongjio calmly withdrew his hand. He stood with his hands behind his back and swaggered into the restaurant. When the passers-by saw this scene, their eyes widened one after another. What? This cold-faced baleful blade is a famous expert in the desert city. Their sabers are famous for being fast. They are actually dead. Who is that kid? He actually killed the two of them without batting an eyelid. Some people who saw this were shocked, and some even turned pale with fright. It seemed that another fierce character had arrived in the city. Otherwise, the cold-faced baleful blade brothers in front of them had been in the city for a long time and had made a name for themselves. Now, they were hired by the Feng family with a large sum of money, but now, they were easily defeated by a mysterious youth. It was very shocking. When the people who had been tailing Li Zongjio from the Desert Eagle saw this scene, they felt as if there was a fish bone stuck in their throats. They were so shocked that they were speechless. Their figures continuously retreated. They did not dare to accept this order. This was simply too horrifying. Unexpectedly, even the cold-faced saber devil and the other two were killed in an instant. The strongest big brother did not even have the chance to draw his saber. Li Zongjio stepped into the Desolation restaurant. Immediately, a waiter came forward to greet him. However, out of curiosity, he glanced at the door. The Feng family's young master had ordered people to guard the door and did not allow anyone to come close. How could someone walk in and scathe? Sir, please take a seat. What would you like to eat? Take a look at the menu. Immediately, the waiter saw the two corpses on the ground and was shocked. He immediately understood that Li Zongjio, who had just walked in, was actually a fierce character. He absolutely could not be neglected. Chapter 12:23. After flipping through a few pages of the menu, Li Zongjio ordered a few of his favorite dishes. The chef of this restaurant was pretty good. If there was a chance, he would let the people from the Divine Chef Institute come here to practice and learn some skills. I'm sorry, sir. The braised shark's fin you ordered is sold out today. It has been bought by the customer upstairs. The waiter glanced at the dish Li Zongjio had ordered and said with a troubled look on his face. Oh, is it ready? Li Zongjio glanced at the waiter. Not yet. Our braised shark's fin is made from a 6th-grade yuan beast, Arctic fish. It takes half an hour from the time it's taken out of the wok to the time it's served. It can't be ready so quickly. Then when it's done, bring it to my table. Li Zongjio said faintly. Also, the two corpses at the door should belong to the people upstairs, right? If you send them to them, it'll ruin your reputation. Hearing Li Zongjio's words, the waiter had a troubled expression on his face. If there's anything, just tell him to come to me. Li Zongjio said. The waiter didn't know what was going on in front of him, but he couldn't just leave this matter hanging here. Li Zongjio was able to kill people without alerting anyone, but he was able to do so. It meant that his strength was not simple. Perhaps he was here for the eldest young master of the Feng family upstairs. No matter what, he couldn't let this be his bad luck. Immediately, the waiter hurriedly moved the corpse away. At the same time, he quickly ran upstairs and reported everything that happened downstairs to young Master Feng's personal bodyguard, who was also young Master Feng's housekeeper. Young Master is talking to a distinguished guest inside. What can I do for you? Young Master Feng's butler was called Yuan Ming. He had always kept a low profile in the city. However, this person called Yuan Ming had once survived for an entire month in the untainted wilderness. Although no one knew how Yuan Ming had managed to survive, he was already considered a top-notch existence to be able to do so. Who would dare to say that they could survive in the untainted land for a month and come out unscathed? Basically, if those who entered the untainted land did not return within 3 days, there was basically no hope for them to come back alive. The waiter told Yuan Ming about what happened downstairs. When Yuan Ming heard this, he immediately frowned. The two of you wait here. No one is allowed to disturb the young master. The two of you follow me. Yes, sir. Yuan Ming ordered 2 experts to stay behind to serve him. If this young master wanted to do something, he would need someone to be at his beck and call. It was impossible to transfer everyone away. When Yuan Ming walked down the stairs, he saw a person sitting peacefully in the hall, drinking wine and eating a few cold dishes that had been served. He seemed to be free and at ease. However, Yuan Ming's focus was not on this. He was trying to see through Li Zhongjio's cultivation, but he found that he could not see through Li Zhongjio's cultivation. On the contrary, Li Zhongjio's body revealed a dangerous aura. This dangerous aura was very faint, but Li Zhongjio had not really taken action yet. If he really felt the danger, it would be too late. Even if he wanted to escape, it would be too late. Why is there no one in such a great restaurant? Could it be that its reputation is undeserved? Just as Yuan Ming was about to step forward and test Li Zhongjio, he saw a young man swagger in through the door. Looking at the situation in front of him, he sat down at the table next to him. Boss, give me 2 jugs of strong wine and a few plates of your signature dishes. I heard that your braised shark's fin is very good. Give me 3 plates. The man only had a black feather fan in his hand. He did not carry any other defensive items. He was dressed very simply and did not look at the menu when he sat down. When the waiter came in to serve tea, he asked the waiter, I came all the way to your restaurant. Why are there so few people? Is this an authentic elemental wilderness restaurant? Sir, don't worry. Of course, this is an authentic elemental wilderness restaurant. There is no other restaurant. That's good. I came here this time especially for the sake of tasting the shark fin here. I heard that it's made from a grade 6 origin beast, Arctic dark ice fish, and it's extremely delicious. You must serve me a few plates today. It doesn't matter how much it costs. I have plenty of money. The man said, Oh sir, I'm really sorry. The braised shark's fin has been ordered by other customers. It's being stewed now. It's being stewed? It hasn't been served yet, right? Come to my table in a while. Tell them that there's no more. I'll pay you double. The man patted the waiter's shoulder and said. Then, he threw a bag of purple yuan to the waiter and gave him a look, indicating that he should hurry up and take care of this matter. Dear guests, I'm really just an employee. Since the 3 of you are here, please have a good discussion about who should eat the shark's fin. The waiter could not make up his mind. It seemed that the 3 of them could not be offended, so he might as well let them settle it themselves. Aren't all 3 of you great gods here? You're all here. Yuan Ming glanced at the 2 of them and finally fixed his eyes on Li Zhongjio. Did you kill the people of my Feng family? Yuan Ming took a step forward and did not get too close to Li Zhongjio. At least, he had to keep a relatively safe distance. Well said. Li Zhongjio looked at Yuan Ming and said. Yuan Ming was shocked. Li Zhongjio's indifferent tone gave the feeling that he did not put the Feng family in his eyes at all. Such temperament was naturally not something that Yuan Ming could compare with. Obviously, the other party knew about the Feng family but did not care. He did not even put them in his eyes. Those 2 were vulgar and must have offended you. Killing them is just killing them. However, my family's young master is upstairs today and has important matters to discuss with your esteemed guest. I hope that you can give us some face and move to Soaring Cloud Restaurant. All the expenses will be on our Feng family's head. In addition, I will personally bring the desolate restaurant's braised shark fin to pay a visit tomorrow. To express my apologies for today. Yuan Ming said. The fame of the Soaring Cloud Restaurant in this desert city was only second to that of the Desolation Restaurant. The dishes there were equally exquisite. Oh, so polite? Li Zhongjio did not expect Yuan Ming in front of him to be so polite. Even Li Zhongjio would be embarrassed to make trouble for him. After all, the other party had already made things clear, and his attitude was relatively upright. He did not give off the feeling of being arrogant. Those who could survive in this desert city were indeed different. Chapter 12:24. All right, since you have such a good attitude, I won't argue with you today, Li Zongjio said. He got up and prepared to leave. Of course, he handed over the accounts on the table to Yuan Ming. Since he had already paid so much, he didn't care about it anymore. Seeing that Li Zongjio was willing to let it go, Yuan Ming finally felt relieved. Yuan Ming heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Fortunately, Li Zongjio did not continue to pursue the matter. Otherwise, he did not know how to resolve the matter today. However, just as Li Zongjio turned around, the situation changed again. A cold voice came from the stairs. Wait, you killed my men, Feng Jianshan, and you want to leave just like that? Feng Jianshan. When Yuan Ming heard the voice, he immediately turned around and looked at Feng Jianshan, who was standing behind him just now. It was the young master of the Feng family, Feng Jianshan. Yuan Ming knew that things weren't going well. He quickly stepped forward and wanted to explain the situation clearly to Feng Jianshan. However, Feng Jianshan directly looked at Yuan Ming with cold eyes. My men were killed by an outsider, and you still want to apologize to this outsider. Yuan Ming, I think you are getting worse and worse. Tomorrow, go to the account room to get your reward and leave the Feng family. My Feng family doesn't need cowards. Feng Jianshan spoke in an arrogant tone, not giving Yuan Ming a chance to explain. After all, Feng Jianshan was here today to discuss the opportunity to join a sect of the desolate region. However, after the discussion, such a situation occurred. How could Feng Jianshan get out of this situation? They had to rebuild the Feng family's prestige and prestige. Boy, kneel down and kowtow to me 18 times. Destroy your own cultivation and then leave Desert City. Don't let me see you again. This way you can still keep your life. Feng Jianshan pointed at Li Zongjio and said. The 4 experts under him also hurried to Li Zongjio's side and surrounded Li Zongjio. Obviously, if Li Zongjio didn't do as he was told, he would immediately cripple Li Zongjio. And even if Li Zongjio did so, in the end, Li Zongjio would still be killed. These people would never show any mercy. They only needed to kill Li Zongjio in order to restore their family's dignity. If that's the case, there's nothing I can do. It's not that I don't want to give you face. Li Zongjio looked at Yuan Ming and said. Just now, he did it for Yuan Ming's sake. After all, Yuan Ming had already done so much, so there was no need to go overboard at all. In the underworld, if someone respected me, I would return the favor tenfold. But now, it wasn't a matter of respect. Since Feng Jianshan wanted to stir up trouble, Li Zongjio certainly had to play with him to his heart's content. Brother, the 10 kings of hell of the Feng family are all experts of the primitive emperor realm. Moreover, the old ancestor of the Feng family has been traveling back and forth in the untainted land all year round. It's not as simple as you think. Think twice. Seeing that he couldn't persuade Feng Jianshan, Yuan Ming looked at Li Zongjio, hoping to find a breakthrough through Li Zongjio. If both sides were to fight, there would be considerable losses between them. However, it was really unnecessary for them to do so for the sake of face. Li Zongjio didn't need to die. He just needed to leave this place. If Li Zongjio wanted to leave today, Feng Jianshan and the others wouldn't be able to stop him. With regards to Li Zongjio's strength, Yuan Ming still had this bit of confidence. What happens next has nothing to do with you. Li Zongjio waved his hand at Yuan Ming and a force pushed Yuan Ming away. When Yuan Ming's feet landed on the ground, he was surprised to find that he was actually outside Desert City. What? How could this be? When Yuan Ming saw the changes around him, his heart felt as though it had been hammered in the chest by a sledgehammer. This caused Yuan Ming's heart to be completely shaken. It's over. Yuan Ming understood in an instant. Now, he finally understood why he felt a sense of danger when he looked at Li Zongjio. It was because Li Zongjio was clearly a supreme being expert. Such a young supreme being expert was either an expert from a top sect in the untainted land, or he was a beast venerable of the untainted land. No matter which one it would be a disaster for the Feng family. It's over now. Poor Feng family. But I'll leave now. I've already repaid the Feng family's kindness. Yuan Ming murmured. Then, he turned around and walked in the opposite direction without hesitation. He did not continue to return to Desert City. Even if he did, he would die. Li Zongjio was saving him. At least he managed to keep his life. Naturally, Yuan Ming would not continue to waste his life. At this moment, in the Untainted Land restaurant, the man in black who came in later moved to the side, as if he was afraid that when Li Zongjio and his gang fought, blood would splash on him. It wasn't easy to get these new clothes. If they were stained with blood, wouldn't it be very unjust? Feng Jianshan saw Yuan Ming, who was still there a moment ago, disappear with a wave of Li Zongjio's hand. His eyes widened. Damn it. It seems that you are determined to be an enemy of the Feng family. Kill him. Feng Jianshan said faintly. He waved his hand and ordered the people around him to attack. Although the 4 experts beside him were not Yuan emperors, they were already at the peak of Yuan monarch. They had also trained in Untainted Land. Their skills must be excellent. Immediately, the 4 of them formed a killing formation and unleashed their Yuan Qi at Li Zongjio at the same time. Moreover, the 4 of them also unleashed their Yuan spirit power at the same time. Although they were only at the Yuan monarch realm, they already knew how to apply their Yuan spirit power to weapons and form this kind of local power. In this way, the power of the origin spirit would be used more effectively, and its power would definitely become more powerful. However, no matter how profound these people's combat skills were, it was useless against Li Zongjio. They were all displaying their slight skills in front of an expert. The 4 sharp swords of the opponent attacked at the same time. Li Zongjio stretched out his hand and slapped 4 times consecutively, breaking the 4 sharp swords easily. Bang, bang, bang. The broken heads of the swords swept towards them. 2 of them reacted slower and their throats were directly pierced by the broken swords. However, the other 2 reacted slightly faster, but their shoulders were still pierced by the swords. Immediately, blood splattered out. Swoosh! Li Zongjio waved his hand and pierced through the heads of the remaining 2 people with the power of a flying knife. Bang bang! The Soul Slayer flying knife easily pierced through the temples of the 2 people. Li Zongjio's finger moved gently, and the Soul Slayer flying knife directly rushed towards Feng Jianshan. Feng Jianshan growled when he saw this. Immediately, a black eagle appeared behind Feng Jianshan. The eagle used its wings to block Feng Jianshan's body, and it began to spin rapidly. Boom! Immediately, an earth-shattering aura erupted. Boom! No matter how big Feng Jianshan's movement was, Li Zongjio's flying knife still easily pierced through. Boom! Feng Jianshan's aura dissipated. However, it wasn't Feng Jianshan who stood in his original position. Instead, it was an old man in a black and white robe. The old man used 2 fingers to clamp down on Li Zongjio's soul cutter flying knife, while his other hand pushed Feng Jianshan behind him. Although he looked very calm on the surface, there was a trace of shock in the old man's eyes. His heart had long been set off a stormy sea. Even under his calm expression, he clenched his teeth and barely managed to maintain the calm situation in front of him. Fellow Taoist, I am Bei Zizai of the Compassionate Cloud's sacred sect. Can you give this old man some face? Little friend Feng has been chosen by an elder of the Compassionate Cloud's sacred sect to be his last disciple. Please be magnanimous. Bei Zizai settled in his heart for a while before he calmed down. Otherwise, the aura in his body would have directly forced him to vomit blood. He endured for a while before he dared to speak. He was not pretending to be cool here. Compassionate Cloud's sacred sect? When Li Zongjio heard this name, the expression on his face suddenly became very strange. The relationship between the Compassionate Cloud's sacred sect and Li Zongjio was really endless. It was difficult to explain clearly in a few words. Of course, the final result was that Li Zongjio destroyed the so-called Compassionate Cloud's sacred sect. Originally, the past grudges were nothing. After all, they did not know each other now. Because of the prosperity of the Li family, they had long forgotten these things. In Li Zongjio's heart, there was even a feeling of amnesty in the world. Let bygones be bygones. but who knew that the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect in front of him would directly hit the muzzle of the gun. He tried again, but failed. Therefore, the expression on Li Zongjio's face was a bit strange. When Bei Zizai saw the expression on Li Zongjio's face, he was also surprised. Could it be that Li Zongjio in front of him had heard of the name of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect? If he had heard of it, then everything would be simple. Since he knew of the name of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect, then the next thing would be much easier. Seems like you have heard of the name of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. This old man is not talented, but I am the chief elder of the outer sect of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. Today's matter is purely a misunderstanding. Why should we hurt our friendship over such a small matter? Bei Zizai obviously wanted to use his name to settle this matter. Although Feng Jianshan was not convinced, he did not dare to speak up at this moment. He just stood behind Bei Zizai and did not say anything. Outer sect elder, right? Fine, I'll give you some face. Kid, if you kneel in front of me and kowtow 999 times, then cut off your third leg, I'll let you go. How about that? I'm being merciful, right? Chapter 12:25. Li Zongjio's words were also quite sincere. Initially, Li Zongjio thought that it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. After all, Feng Jianshan was still a child. If this lesson could make him turn over a new leaf, Li Zongjio would have done a good thing. Therefore, Li Zongjio also chose to do a good thing for the first time. Even he himself did not expect that his temper could become so good now. If it was in the past, he would have already taken Feng Jianshan's head and gone to the Feng family to cause trouble. Even this Bei Zizai in front of him would not have a good ending. Li Zongjio would also be killed. Sai, how can I be so kind now? I don't even recognize myself anymore. At this moment, Li Zongjio also forced himself to act in his heart. For such a change, Li Zongjio's heart was also a little melancholy. However, it was obvious that the other party did not want to accept Li Zongjio's kindness. Feng Jianshan's face was gloomy and he did not speak. Li Zongjio's request was better to directly end Feng Jianshan's life. Similarly, Bei Zizai's face did not have a good expression. Looking at Li Zongjio in front of him, his face was extremely cold. This Li Zongjio was clearly teasing him. Bei Zizai, why do you have to make things difficult for this lowly kid in front of you? I have already released my Feng family's signal. In a moment, all of them will arrive. Feng Jianshan looked at Li Zongjio with an ominous premonition in his heart. At least, he would not be able to block the flying knife just now. If it were not for Deacon Bei's help, he would probably be seriously injured at this moment. Sir, are you not giving face to my Compassionate Cloud sacred sect? How could Bei Zizai get off the stage? He was still holding Li Zongjio's flying knife in his hand. It wasn't that Bei Zizai didn't want to return the dagger to Li Zongjio, but the dagger gave him a strange feeling. It was as if he let go of it, the dagger would attack him again without hesitation. Naturally, he would return the knife to Li Zongjio after the negotiation. At the very least, he had to make sure that Li Zongjio would not mess around. Is the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect that great? Li Zongjio frowned and said indifferently. Feng Jianshan and Bei Zizai were enraged when they heard Li Zongjio's impudent words. Little brother, let me give you a piece of advice. It's fine if you make fun of me, but if you dare to insult the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect, believe me, you will regret it. Bei Zizai said coldly. Even after saying these words, he felt that he was full of vigor. If he had the confidence to kill Li Zongjio, he wouldn't have wasted so much time talking to Li Zongjio. He would have rushed forward and smashed Li Zongjio into minced meat when Li Zongjio was being arrogant. Is that so? I like to insult your Compassionate Cloud Saint sect. Sorry, I'm not targeting you. I'm saying that your Compassionate Cloud Saint sect is a rubbish sect. What can you do about it? Li Zongjio waved his hand and said. At this time, the shopkeeper of the Great Desolation restaurant heard Li Zongjio's words from afar. His face turned extremely ugly. He originally wanted to stop the fight, but when he heard Li Zongjio's words, he knew that it was too late. It's over, it's over. My Great Desolation restaurant is going to be a bloodbath again. The shopkeeper thought for a while and decided that it was better for him not to show up. Therefore, he returned to his small room and went to sleep peacefully. He also hoped that these people wouldn't tear down his restaurant. However, all the losses would be settled with the Feng family. Being able to open such a restaurant in the desert city meant that such a day would definitely come. There must be enough strength behind it to ensure that the Great Desolation restaurant could continue to operate normally. Those who insult the sect die. Beizazai's eyes suddenly burst out with monstrous killing intent. His aura was also released. 6th grade primitive emperor. With such strength, being able to sit as an outer sect elder of the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect meant that he had some means. One should know that the sect master of the Mystic Yuan sect was only a mid-level primitive emperor. Immediately, Beizazai prepared to throw the flying knife in his hand towards Li Zongjio and blast Li Zongjio's head with it. However, when Beizazai's finger left the flying knife, he found that the power he exerted on the flying knife seemed to be swallowed by the flying knife. Swish! The Soul Slayer flying knife directly spun and flew towards Beizazai's palm. This time, the speed was several times faster than before. Beizazai's right hand fingers were directly cut off by the Soul Slayer flying knife. Beizazai had already raised his palm, preparing to use the supreme palm technique of the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect to smash Li Zongjio into pieces. However, in the blink of an eye, all 5 of Beizazai's fingers were cut off by the Soul Slayer flying knife. My fingers! Beizazai looked at his bare palm. In the next second, the Soul Slayer flying knife continued to spin. Immediately, Beizazai's arm was like a fruit vendor on the street peeling pears. The skin and flesh on his arm were easily cut off. Blood splattered on the ground, and the bones of his arm could be clearly seen. All of this happened in an instant. Even the protective Yuan energy in Beizazai's body did not have the slightest movement. It was simply too late to resist the power of the Soul Slayer flying knife, and the flesh on his arm was already cut off. Only white bones appeared in front of his eyes. What? Seeing this scene, Feng Jianshan was so frightened that he retreated several steps. His face also became pale. Go! Li Zongjio waved his hand again and cut off Beizazai's other hand, turning it into white bones. Beizazai's feet were covered with blood. He was a dignified 6th grade origin emperor, but in front of Li Zongjio, he did not have the slightest strength to resist. How is it? Didn't I say that trash is trash? Li Zongjio waved his hand and said, I have given you enough time to consider. Are you going to kneel or not? Li Zongjio looked at Feng Jianshan. If Feng Jianshan was unwilling, then he would just take care of Feng Jianshan. After taking care of Feng Jianshan, he still had to eat the fish. Just as Feng Jianshan did not know how to reply to Li Zongjio, a group of murderous people immediately rushed in from outside the Desolation restaurant. These people were all wearing leather armor. Not only could the leather armor insulate the heat, it could also protect the body. Young master, are you all right? Feng Jianshan saw that the person who rushed in was the leader of the Feng family's guards. Coincidentally, these people were patrolling nearby today and happened to see Feng Jianshan's signal. Otherwise, it would take some time for them to come to the rescue. At least, it would not be as fast as it was now. Although the desert city was not big, it was not small either. Feng Tang, you came at the right time. Quickly take this person down. This person dares to slander the prestige of the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect. Also, quickly get the medical officer to treat Elder Bei's injuries. Feng Jianshan quickly ordered. At this moment, Feng Tang had brought with him close to 20 elite guards. These people were all Yuan King experts. Most importantly, these people had killed countless people and were extremely skilled in killing. Each of them was ruthless and merciless. Quickly stop Elder Bei's bleeding. Feng Tang quickly ordered when he saw the situation. One of them stepped forward and sprinkled a hemostatic powder on the 2 bloody white bones. Even though he had killed many people before, he could not help but feel terrified when he saw the 2 bones swaying in front of his eyes. Close the door. Feng Tang ordered. He took out his treasured saber. With a loud bang, the door of the wilderness restaurant was completely blocked. The people outside could not enter, and the people inside could not leave. In fact, it did not matter whether the door was closed or not. However, doing so would serve as a psychological deterrent. It would make one feel truly afraid and timid. It would take the initiative to break one's psychological defense and everything would be over. However, this kind of inferior trick was completely useless against Li Zongjio. Brother, don't make things difficult for us. Come with us obediently and we won't make things difficult for you. Feng Tang pointed his saber at Li Zongjio. From the scene in front of him, he naturally knew how difficult it was to deal with Li Zongjio. Even Feng Jianshan's powerful personal guard, Yuan Ming, had disappeared. Could he have been scared away? Therefore, this matter was not simple. This made Feng Tang even more vigilant as he stared at Li Zongjio in front of him. Finally, Feng Tang saw Li Zongjio's finger move. Although there was not the slightest fluctuation of Yuan energy, Feng Tang subconsciously sensed that something was wrong. Not good dodge. Unfortunately, these words were spoken a little too late. Almost at the same time as the other party spoke, the soul-slaying saber had already turned into a cold light with a swoosh. In an instant, it shuttled through the temples of the surrounding Feng family guards. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As the flying saber swept through, the bodies of the guards who were about to kill Li Zongjio fell one after another. Plop. Plop. One by one they fell to the ground. The last one was Feng Tang. Immediately, Feng Tang's pupils shrank. He only had time to see a flying saber flying toward him. This was also the last thing he saw. Swoosh. The soul-slaying saber flew out with a splash of blood. Feng Tang's body also fell to the ground with a plop. Chapter 12:26. The guards of the Feng family who finally arrived were all lying on the ground. They did not get up, nor did they have the chance to get up. Feng Jianshan thought that he could be saved, but looking at the scene in front of him, he felt as if he had fallen from the sky into a deep valley. What are you trying to do? Feng Jianshan stared at Li Zongjio. At this moment he was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He did not even have the strength to stand and sat on the ground. Tell me, is the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect trash? Li Zongjio asked. The soul cutter flew back into Li Zongjio's hand. He casually played with the flying knife between his fingers. He did not even try to hide his threat. I'll talk. Don't kill me. Please kneel down and talk. Li Zongjio said politely. Hearing Li Zongjio's words and looking at the corpses on the ground, Feng Jianshan didn't even know what he had encountered to cause such a situation to occur. However, Li Zongjio's strength was not something that Feng Jianshan could resist. At this moment, Feng Jianshan's identity as the young master of the Feng family did not bring him any benefits. Although his legs turned to jelly, Feng Jianshan still stubbornly straightened his body and knelt down in front of Li Zongjio. Feng Jianshan, if you dare to insult the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect, the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect will definitely destroy your Feng family. You have to think carefully. Although Bei Zizai was in extreme pain at this moment, the power of the soul-severing flying dagger made it impossible for him to heal this injury. The remaining aura in the bones of his hand made him feel great pain at every moment. Finally, Bei Zizai could not bear the pain anymore. He stepped on the flying knife on the ground and cut off his arms directly. In this way, the wounds could be healed, but the hands that were cut off would never have the chance to recover. Although his hands were cut off, at least he did not have to endure the pain anymore. Bei Zizai's forehead was already covered in sweat. At this moment, he used his mind to take out a talisman from his storage bag. This talisman was ignited with the power of Yuan fire, and it immediately sent out a message. This was the special distress signal of the Ci Yun Saint clan. As long as the signal talisman was sent out, someone would arrive within an hour. In fact, it wouldn't even take an hour. Brat of the Feng family, if you do anything to disgrace the name of our Compassionate Cloud sacred sect today, your whole family will be buried with you, Bei Zizai said coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Today, Li Zongjio had truly angered Bei Zizai, and he himself had suffered a great blow. Now, he was thinking of ways to find an opportunity to kill everyone who knew about this. Therefore, even the Feng family could not protect Feng Jianshan. Elder, Feng Jianshan's face was filled with grievances. How could he disgrace the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect? One should know that in order to join the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect, the Feng family had spent a lot of effort and resources to send him to the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. In order to climb this line, they had spent a lot of resources. Now that they finally had the chance to join the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect, who knew that such a thing would appear? I'll give you 3 seconds to think about it. 3, 2, Li Zongjio said indifferently. After his voice faded away. I'll say it, the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect is trash. After saying this, Li Yunhong said. What? Feng Jianshan felt that he was about to faint. He never thought that it would be so difficult to say a word. Good, very good. Your Feng family, wait to be annihilated. Of course, he believed that Li Zongjio would not dare to kill him. If Li Zongjio dared to kill him, Li Zongjio would have done so long ago. If Li Zongjio dared to kill him, he would have done so long ago. Even if you hid in any of the 3 dynasties, there would definitely be someone who would dig you out personally. You would have nowhere to hide. Bei Zizai was confident that Li Zongjio would only dare to injure him and not kill him. Now that Feng Jianshan dared to say such words, the Feng family's fate was sealed. Swoosh! Li Zongjio's soul-slaying flying dagger suddenly fell in front of Feng Jianshan. Feng Jianshan was so scared that he quickly covered his head, fearing that his head would explode. However, the flying dagger only hovered in front of Feng Jianshan's eyes and did not continue to move forward. However, the sharp aura still made Feng Jianshan feel like his scalp was being cut open. What do you want? Feng Jianshan quickly said with a trembling voice. Could it be that Li Zongjio had some special fetish? He wanted to kill your family. I have no enmity with you, so I am your friend. Shouldn't you kill him? With my flying dagger in hand, he won't be able to escape. Li Zongjio said with a faint smile. No enmity? Looking at the corpses lying around, where did you think they came from? They were all killed by you, and they were all from the Feng family. How could this be called no enmity? However, Li Zongjio's intention was very obvious. He wanted Feng Jianshan to kill Bei Zizai. Feng Jianshan, how dare you? Bei Zizai took a step to the side, creating a certain distance between him and Feng Jianshan. Just now, he helped Feng Jianshan and saved his life. He did not expect that Feng Jianshan would use his enemy's weapon to take his life. Don't blame me for being ruthless. You are the one who wanted to kill my family, so I can only kill you. Feng Jianshan's eyes flashed with a fierce light. He immediately grabbed the soul cutter that Li Zongjio gave him and stabbed it towards Bei Zizai. With Bei Zizai's cultivation, even if his hands were broken, Feng Jianshan would not be able to stop him. However, just as Bei Zizai was about to use his Yuan Qi to blast Feng Jianshan into smithereens, he suddenly felt a strong binding force that was as strong as a mountain. It completely suppressed Bei Zizai's body. Not good. Bei Zizai wanted to take out some treasures from his storage ring, but his storage ring was directly sealed, as if it was cut off from his body. The only one who could do all this was Li Zongjio. Only Li Zongjio could do this, deliberately toying with their lives. Feng Jianshan stabbed Bei Zizai's chest, piercing a big hole in his heart. Then he stabbed a few more times. Chi. Feng Jianshan unleashed all the fear in his heart on Bei Zizai's body, turning Bei Zizai's body into a beehive. Tsk, beautiful, beautiful. Li Zongjio could not help but clap his hands. However, Feng Jianshan, who was covered in blood, saw that in Li Zongjio's hand there was a shining stone. Photographic stone. A stone that could record images. Moreover, it had clearly recorded the scene that had taken place just now. Feng Jianshan did not understand what Li Zongjio wanted to do, but he did not want to die. At this moment, when he saw Bei Zizai being stabbed into a hornet's nest, and then looked at the photographic stone in Li Zongjio's hand, he seemed to understand. Li Zongjio wanted to play him to death. With a swoosh, the flying knife in Feng Jianshan's hand returned to Li Zongjio's. Do you want to eat this braised shark's fin too? Li Zongjio held the soul-slaying flying knife in his hand and looked at the man in black, who was sitting in the corner, with a questioning gaze. Immediately, an awkward smile appeared on the black-clothed man's face. In the end, it was actually because of this plate of shark's fin. Li Zongjio had already killed so many people in order to eat this plate of shark's fin. If he was agitated, it would not be too much for him to kill another person. Therefore he could only smile. "You take your time. I will come again next time." After saying that, the man in black opened the door of the restaurant and ran out quickly, disappearing without a trace. A monster that has just transformed dares to play tricks in front of me? Li Zongjio looked at the departing figure and said indifferently. The man in black who had just escaped and disappeared without a trace was a meta-beast that had transformed into a meta-beast. However, this meta-beast had obviously not reached the sovereign realm. It was only because of its special strength that it had the opportunity to perform such a transformation technique. However, even if his strength had reached the peak of the Origin Emperor realm, he did not dare to act rashly in front of Li Zongjio. Obviously, this was an extremely gluttonous meta-beast. He originally wanted to taste the legendary braised shark's fin in this desert city. It was said that if the braised shark's fin was cooked well, the aroma could spread dozens of miles away. Just as the man in black left, an extremely rich aroma floated from the direction of the kitchen. Li Zongjio glanced at the dishes on the table that were already stained with blood. "Waiter, bring that shark's fin upstairs." "Yes, sir." The waiter immediately responded. Wasn't this matter obvious enough? The way to deal with it next was obviously much simpler. Li Zongjio naturally swaggered up to the private room upstairs in an extremely carefree manner. However, the corpses on the ground, as well as the corpse that had tasted the pain of having its heart gouged out, were naturally handed over to Feng Jianshan. Li Zongjio did not kill Feng Jianshan, but left him with his life. He wanted to see how long Feng Jianshan could struggle. For a game that controlled the life and death of others, no matter how long it took, it was still enjoyable to play it. Evil Lord, you should act like an evil lord. Chapter 12:27. Feng Jianshan forced himself to calm down. There's still a chance. There's still a chance. Although Feng Jianshan did not know what Li Zongjio wanted to do, he only wanted to survive. The only trouble was to get rid of Bei Zizai's corpse. There was less than an hour left. The experts of Compassionate Cloud Saint Sect would definitely arrive here. Before that, he had to get rid of everything. He had to get rid of everything. Feng Jianshan glanced at the shopkeeper at the counter. There was a hint of inquiry and threat in his eyes. Don't tell me you don't know the rules of Great Desolation Restaurant? Aside from cooking, we don't know anything else that happens in Great Desolation Restaurant. We don't know anything. The shopkeeper of the Great Desolate Restaurant was quite heroic and seemed to be extremely loyal. However, Feng Jianshan knew that such a person was the most likely to betray him in the face of battle. He might betray him at any time. Therefore, he had to think of a way to get rid of all these people. Feng Jianshan released a signal. Because of the previous signal for help, people from Feng family came quickly. Feng Jianshan saw hope in the people who came here. Third uncle, something bad has happened. When Feng Jianshan saw his third uncle, who doted on him the most, appearing in front of him, he was naturally excited. After all, he had endured so much torture in the hands of Li Zongjio. He was just a child. How could he endure such pain? What kind of torture did he suffer? What happened? Tell me slowly. Feng family's third brother patted Feng Jianshan's head as if he was comforting his own child. Don't be afraid. Third uncle is here. Feng family's third brother said. There's no time. We have to get rid of these corpses first. When Feng family's third brother saw that the Great Desolation Restaurant was full of corpses, he knew that they were all experts of Feng family. They were all hired at a high price. What happened in the restaurant? Isn't this? Feng family's third brother's face changed when he saw Zizai being stabbed into a pulp. He was sent out by Ci Yun Saint Clan to take care of everything for Ci Yun Saint Clan. He was an outer sect chief elder. To put it nicely, he was an elder, but in the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect, he was just an errand boy. But even if he was just an errand boy of the Compassionate Cloud Saint Sect, he couldn't just die here casually. And by the looks of it, it seemed like this had something to do with Feng Jianshan. That was all the more reason to stop this. After pondering for a moment, the Feng family's third brother ordered the others to stand guard outside the door. He only called 2 of his trusted aides in and took away all the corpses. He also gave the Great Desolation restaurant a large sum of money. What happened today has never happened in the Great Desolate restaurant. No one from the Feng family has ever been here. The third son of the Feng clan walked to the front of the shopkeeper and said. The shopkeeper also smiled slightly. Don't worry, I know the rules. The third brother of the Feng clan nodded, then took out a 1 million purple yuan banknote and slapped it on the counter. Then he turned around and left with everyone. This matter needed to be discussed properly in order to overcome the crisis of the Feng family. Unexpectedly, such a thing happened. The people of the Compassionate Cloud Saint Sect were killed by Feng Jianshan. The shopkeeper of the Great Desolation restaurant was naturally happy after receiving the 1 million purple yuan banknotes. However, it was not easy to earn 1 million purple yuan banknotes. The strength of the person who is dining upstairs is unfathomable. His character is eccentric and terrifying. The shopkeeper of the Great Desolate restaurant had seen a lot of people. However, he had never seen someone like Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio was powerful after all. It was normal for him to have some eccentricities. If he was in Li Zongjio's shoes, his temper would be even more eccentric. Waiter, you better serve this master well. Don't worry, shopkeeper. Li Zongjio naturally ate all the delicacies on the table in the private room. However, half an hour passed in the blink of an eye. The 3 of them were dressed in dark red robes that were embroidered with a few flowing cloud patterns. When this group of people landed in the desert city, they immediately shocked the few people beside them. Are they crazy? Jumping around in broad daylight? Why don't they perform acrobatics? A burly man with a saber was startled. These people seemed to have appeared out of nowhere without any sound. However, after landing, the movement itself was not small. He almost had a heart attack from the shock. Therefore, the burly man with a saber could not help but curse. Although there were 3 people on the other side, how could they cower when they were roaming the Jianghu? One of the 3 turned around and looked at the burly man in front of him, his eyes emitting a cold light. What are you looking at? Do you want to chop me? In the next second, the burly man's throat was grabbed by the young man's hand and lifted up. His feet left the ground and kept kicking. Crack. A crisp sound came from the burly man's neck. Then, his whole body fell to the ground with a thud and lost his vitality. A person was killed on the street. Moreover, this burly man with a saber seemed to have made a name for himself before. Usually, he was a ruthless person. However, a ruthless person's fate was so direct. In an instant, he became a dead dog lying on the ground. The difference between before and after was so fast that it made people dumbfounded. Prehistoric restaurant. One of them opened his mouth and said. Then, the 3 of them quickly rushed toward the prehistoric restaurant. Among the 3 of them, only one was slightly older. The other 2, a man and a woman, looked around 25 or 26 years old. They were about the same age as Feng Jianshan. However, their decisiveness and ruthlessness were not something that Feng Jianshan could compare with. In the distance, Gu Wei, who was looking for clues on the street, happened to see the scene in front of her. From the clothes of the 3 of them, she knew the origin of these 3 people. However, there were not many people who knew about them. After all, the news of the prehistoric sect was not something that ordinary people could understand. Compassionate Cloud Saint Sect? They seem to be from the inner sect. What are these people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint Sect doing in this city? When Gu Wei saw the identity of these 3 people, she was surprised. This was because these people from the prehistoric sect basically did not show up easily. Usually they were out of the world. Even if they had some interactions, they would only walk a little between each other's sections. They rarely came to the so-called mortal world in person. Therefore, Gu Wei was very curious. However, Gu Wei did not dare to investigate alone. If there were any accidents, or if she accidentally angered these people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect, the consequences would be unimaginable. These people were very powerful. They were not people that the 4 great families in the desert city could deal with. I heard that the Feng family and the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect have a very close relationship. Could it be that they are here for the people of the Feng family? Gu Wei immediately turned back and immediately sent people to investigate this matter. This was not a small matter. If the Feng family did anything, the other families would be in danger. Even with the status of the 4 major families in this desert city, it was as if they were treading on thin ice. They could not sleep soundly every day. Every day, the open and secret struggles were much more severe and intense than they had imagined. Chapter 12:28. The 3 people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect arrived at the Eldritch restaurant. At this moment, the Eldritch restaurant had been cleaned up by the Feng family. Everything looked normal. After the Eldritch restaurant was vacated, many guests came to dine. For a moment, it was so lively that no one could tell that there had been a murder case here. Of course, such a scene was also a feature. Even if it was on the street, the scene could be cleaned up quickly. 3 guests, please come in. The waiter came up with a warm smile and asked. The young man pushed the waiter away and looked around the Eldritch restaurant. Suddenly, he reached out and grabbed the person who was eating beside him. Hey, what are you doing? That person was quite unhappy that he was caught. His companions who were eating with him also glared at him. Put him down or you will regret it. When he spoke, he looked very cool. Trash. The young man from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect threw him out. Bang. The man smashed the table and flipped it over. He directly destroyed the good dishes on the table. Fuck. You're courting death. Several people at the same table took out their weapons. They were a group of people who licked blood on the blade. Therefore, when they met these fierce people, they often had to be fiercer than them. Only in this way could they beat others and not be killed while walking on the street. However, no matter how fierce these people were, it was useless. He had merely drawn out his weapon, but before he could even make a move, he had already been obliterated by someone else. With a sweep of his sword, he killed all of them. His body stayed in the same place, but his head fell to the ground with a thud. Irrelevant people, get lost. The young man said coldly. The surrounding diners were also shocked, but no one ran away. They really couldn't believe that there were so many people in the Eldritch restaurant. Could it be that he could kill all of them one by one? Furthermore, the 3 of you dared to behave atrociously in the Great Desolate Restaurant. Those who could come here to eat were all people with some standards. If such a situation occurred in an ordinary city, the diners in the restaurant would probably admit defeat. However, in this desert city, in the Wilderness Restaurant, it was useless. When the young man saw that the people in front of him did not seem to have any intention of moving, the sword in his hand immediately released a faint murderous aura. He was ready to kill everyone in the Wilderness Restaurant. However, just as he was about to attack, he was stopped by the old man among the 3. The old man stretched out his hand and pressed on the young man's shoulder. Everybody, we're from the Ci Yun Holy Sect. Less than an hour ago, someone from the Ci Yun Holy Sect was killed and sent a distress signal. Some of you must know. Tell me and I won't kill him. Compassionate Cloud Saint Clan. Some of them were unfamiliar with the name. They guessed that it was a despicable sect. However, some of them felt their hearts skip a beat when they heard the name Ci Yun Saint Sect. The name Ci Yun Saint sounded extremely familiar. A sect from the untainted land. Someone exclaimed. Suddenly, the people present began to talk about it. Even the 3-year-old children in the desert city knew that as long as they came from the untainted land, they could not be underestimated. They had to be on tenterhooks all the time. They had to be careful all the time. The reason why the people in the desert city stayed in such a hot place, even a place where birds didn't even shit, was to enter the untainted land to search for treasures. However, the untainted land was extremely dangerous. Few people could survive for more than 3 days in the untainted land. No matter where you hid in the untainted land, as long as you could stay for 3 days, you would be respected by others when you returned. At least, this was a kind of recognition of the strong. However, these people had been here for a long time and realized that there were still sects in the untainted land. In such a cruel environment, they could establish a sect and develop it safely. Such strength was enough to show the strength of the people in the untainted land. Even if their individual strength was not strong, there would definitely be experts in the sects behind them. Experts of this level were not something you could imagine. According to what they knew, the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect was one of the sects in the untainted land. No wonder they dared to be so arrogant and kill people on sight. In the blink of an eye, they killed 4 people. After all, their strength was strong and they had the capital to be arrogant. What could they do? We just arrived not long ago. We really don't know what happened here. Experts, you can ask them. They came a little earlier. Immediately, a table of people stood up. Their table was empty except for a pot of tea. Obviously, they had just walked in. This matter had nothing to do with them. After all, they had just arrived. However, just as the 3 of them were about to sneak away, they saw the young woman raise her hand and close the door of the Untainted Land restaurant. At the same time, 3 flying needles were thrown out. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The flying needles carried an extremely weak sound and easily pierced the back of the 3 people's necks. The 3 of them fell to the ground. The 3 people who were originally running wildly suddenly stopped. It was obvious that their bodies were paralyzed in an instant. The poison on the flying needles had directly ended their lives. Since you can't help me, it's naturally useless to live. Don't you think so? The old man from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect said slowly. They were all high and mighty experts. How could they talk about the rules and keep their promises with ants like you? If they wanted to kill you, they would just kill you directly. What could they do? Obviously, they had no intention of letting these people leave from the beginning. Although the one who died was just an outer sect disciple, he was still a disciple of their Compassionate Cloud Saint sect. They had to find him and give an explanation to the sect. They also had to teach the culprits a lesson. They had to let them know how terrifying the ancient sects were. Only by killing some people, the rest would learn to be smart. Now, we'll take turns to go to each table. Whoever knows something must say it. As long as the clues are useful, I promise I won't make things difficult for you. The young man brought a chair for the old man. He wanted everyone to go up and tell. Who would dare to go up first? These people were decisive and unpredictable. Who knew what would happen? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.